Hi guys, tonight we drift quietly into the frozen heart of a Siberian winter long ago. The sun is sinking. The air is turning cold, it feels like ice against your cheeks. The wind is coming off the fields like a cold river, finding every gap in your clothes. You can hear the dry grass snapping under your boots. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you want to let me know where you are listening from and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing those little snapshots of the world. Now dim the lights and let the story begin. You are walking through a world that is painted in shades of blue and white. The sun has already dipped below the line of the trees, leaving behind a sky the color of a bruised plum. It is that quiet time of day when the birds stop singing and the animals find a place to hide. The only sound is the steady rhythmic crunch of your boots. Each step you take sinks deep into the soft, powdery snow. It is a dry snow, the kind that happens when the air is so cold it steals the moisture from everything it touches. It does not stick together to make balls, it just flows like white sand around your ankles. You are wearing a very heavy coat. It is called a kaftan. A kaftan is a long, thick coat made of wool or sturdy cloth to keep the wind out. It reaches down past your knees, and the fabric is rough to the touch. Underneath you have layers of linen and wool, all working together to trap the heat of your body. Around your waist is a simple rope belt, tied in a firm knot. On your feet you have thick boots made of felt. They are called valenki. They are not like the boots people wear today. They have no laces and no hard soles. They are just thick, grey tubes of matted wool that keep your toes from turning to ice. As you walk, the wool of the boots rubs against the snow, making a soft, shushing sound. The forest around you is very old and very still. The trees are mostly pines and firs, their branches hanging low under the weight of the winter. They look like giant white-cloaked ghosts standing watch in the dark. Every now and then, a branch will groan under the weight of the snow, or a small clump of ice will fall and hit the ground with a soft thud. Aside from that, it is silent. This is a deep, heavy silence. It is the kind of silence that makes you hear your own heart beating in your ears. It is the kind of silence that tells you that winter is the boss of this land. In these parts of the world, winter is not just a season. It is a test. It is a long, dark night that lasts for many months. The people who live here know how to survive it, but they never forget how strong the cold can be. You look up at the sky and see the first few stars beginning to blink. They look like tiny holes poked in a black blanket. They do not look warm. They look like shards of ice hanging in the air. The air itself feels sharp. Every time you take a breath, you can feel the cold tickling the inside of your nose. You see the white mist of your breath floating away from you like a small cloud. It hangs in the air for a second before the wind whisks it away into the trees. You are heading toward a small village. You cannot see it yet, but you know it is there, tucked into a fold of the hills where the wind cannot hit it quite so hard. You are part of the night shift of history. You are one of the many people who have lived their lives in places where the sun is rarely seen in the winter. Your job right now is simply to get home. Survival is the most important work of all when the temperature drops to 40 degrees below zero. At that temperature, the world changes. Metal can snap like glass. Water turns to stone in an instant. The sap inside the trees can freeze and expand, making the wood crack with a sound like a gunshot echoing through the woods. You pass a small stream, but you cannot see the water. It is buried under a layer of ice so thick that a horse and cart could drive over it without making a sound. The snow on top of the ice is smooth and flat, looking like a white road leading deeper into the dark. You keep your eyes on the path. In the distance, you see a tiny, flickering orange light. It is a small spark in the vast blue darkness. That light is your goal. It is the glow of a fire coming through a tiny window. It represents warmth, food, and safety. As you get closer, the smell of the village reaches you. It is a wonderful smell. It is the scent of burning birch wood and dried pine. The smoke rises from the chimneys in straight grey columns, going high up into the still air. Each house in the village is an izba. An izba is a traditional Russian log cabin. These houses are very clever. They are built using thick logs that are fitted together so tightly that the wind cannot find a way inside. Long ago, these homes were often built without using a single metal nail. The people used axes to cut notches in the logs, so they would lock together like the fingers of two hands. They stuffed the cracks between the logs with dried moss to keep the heat from escaping. You reach the edge of the clearing. The snow here is crisscrossed with the tracks of sledges and the footprints of heavy boots. The houses look like small dark mounds of wood under huge caps of white snow. The eaves of the roofs are decorated with simple carvings of horses or birds, though most of them are hidden by the frost tonight. You feel a sense of relief as you step into the village lane. The wind is not as strong here, blocked by the sturdy walls of the homes. You stop for a moment to catch your breath. The world is so big and so cold, and you are so small. The humans are clever. We have found ways to live in the coldest places on Earth. We have found ways to make the night feel short and the winter feel warm. You look at your hands. Your mittens are covered in a thin crust of ice from your breath, but your fingers inside are still moving. You are okay. You are almost there. The silence returns as the wind dies down for a moment. You stand perfectly still in the middle of the lane. You can hear the distant bark of a dog, muffled by the heavy air. You can hear the faint sound of a wooden door closing somewhere far away. But here, right where you stand, there is only the peace of the snow. It is a lonely feeling, but it is also very beautiful. The world looks clean and pure, as if the snow has washed away all the noise and the dirt of the year. You think about the history of this place. For hundreds of years, families have walked these same paths. They have worn the same kinds of wool and felt. They have looked at the same cold stars and felt the same bite of the frost on their ears. This land does not change much. It is a place of old traditions and slow movements. In the winter, everything moves slowly. You have to move slowly to save your energy. You have to move carefully so you do not slip on the ice. You begin to walk again, heading for the house with the brightest light in the window. That is your home. Inside, the air will be thick and warm. It will smell of soup and old wood. And most importantly, the great stove will be waiting. It is the heart of the house. It is the thing that makes life possible in this frozen forest. Without the stove, the house would just be a box of cold logs. With the stove, it is a palace of comfort. You reach the wooden gate of your yard. It is heavy and stiff with the cold. You have to lean your shoulder against it to push it open. It makes a long, low creak that sounds like a person complaining. You walk across the yard, past the woodpile. Logs are stacked neatly, covered by a piece of heavy cloth to keep the snow off. That wood is like gold in the winter. It is the fuel that keeps the darkness away. You reach the porch of the Izba. It is a small raised platform with a few steps. You stamp your feet hard on the wooden planks. Thump, thump, thump. You want to knock the heavy crust of snow off your boots before you go inside. The snow falls away in big, grey chunks. Your toes feel tingly as the blood starts to move in them. You reach for the door handle. It is made of wood, so it does not pull the heat out of your hand like metal would. You take a deep breath, one last gulp of the freezing, sharp night air. You turn the handle and pull. The door is heavy and thick. As it opens, a cloud of white steam rushes out to meet you. This is the warm air of the house hitting the freezing air of the night. It looks like a ghost rushing past you into the dark. You step over the high wooden sill. The sill is built high off the ground to keep the snow and the cold drafts from blowing across the floor. You push the door shut behind you, leaning back against it until you hear the heavy wooden latch click into place. You are inside. The transition is incredible. 1 second you are in a world that wanted to freeze you solid, and the next you are wrapped in a blanket of warmth. It is dark inside, lit only by a small oil lamp and the glowing mouth of the stove. But it is a good kind of dark. It is a safe dark. You stand there for a moment, letting your eyes adjust. You can hear the soft crackle of wood burning. You can hear the steady breathing of people who are already resting. The air is heavy with the scent of the hearth. You are no longer a traveller in the wild. You are a person at home. The long walk through the snow is over. The night shift of survival has brought you to the place where the fire never goes out. You feel the weight of the kaftan on your shoulders and know that soon you will be able to take it off and climb up into the heat. Everything in this room is made of wood or clay. The walls are dark, stained by years of smoke and life. The ceiling is low to keep the heat down where the people are. And there, taking up a huge part of the room, is the Pech. It looks like a mountain of whitewashed clay. It is the most important thing in your world right now. You look at it and feel a deep sense of gratitude. The winter can howl all it wants outside. It can shake the trees and freeze the rivers. But inside this room, near this stove, you are the king of your own warm world. The heavy wooden door shuts with a solid deep thud. The sound is muffled by the thick logs of the cabin, but it is the most beautiful sound you have heard all day. It means the wind can no longer reach you. It means the ice cannot touch your skin. You stand in the small entryway for a moment. This little room is called a seni. It is a tiny space between the outside door and the main room of the house. It acts like a trap for the cold. When you opened the outer door, the freezing air rushed into this little box, but the inner door kept it from cooling down the rest of the home. This is how people stayed warm hundreds of years ago. They were very clever about how they built their houses. You can feel the air here is already much warmer than it was outside. It is not hot yet, but the bite is gone. You reach up to your face and feel your cheeks. They are cold and stiff, like two pieces of frozen fruit. As the warmth of the cabin touches them, they start to tingle. It is a strange feeling, a bit like tiny needles poking your skin. This is the blood coming back to the surface. It tells you that you are safe. You take off your heavy mittens. They are stiff with frost. You shake them out, hearing the little bits of ice hit the floorboards. The floor here is made of wide, thick planks of wood. They are not perfectly flat. They are worn down in the middle from years of people walking back and forth. You move to the inner door. This one is smaller and even thicker. You have to duck your head as you go through. This is on purpose. The doors in these old houses were made low so that the warm air, which likes to stay high near the ceiling, would not escape every time someone walked in or out. It also meant that anyone entering the house had to bow. It was a natural way of showing respect to the home and the family inside. You step over the high wooden sill. This high step keeps the cold drafts from crawling across the floor like snakes. Now you are in the main room. The air here is different. It is thick and heavy. It smells of many things all at once. You smell the sharp, sweet scent of pine wood from the walls. You smell the earthy scent of dried herbs hanging from the ceiling. There is the smell of old wool blankets and the faint, salty smell of dried fish. But mostly, you smell the stove. It is a smell of wood smoke, warm clay, and baking bread. It is a smell that means life. In the corner, a small lamp flickers. It is a simple thing, just a piece of string sitting in a bowl of oil. It gives off a soft, golden light that makes the shadows dance on the walls. The room is small, much smaller than the houses we live in today, but it feels big enough because everything has its place. Along the walls there are long wooden benches. These are used for sitting during the day and sometimes for sleeping at night. Above the benches, there are shelves holding wooden bowls, spoons, and jars. Everything is made by hand. You can see the marks of the axe and the knife on the wood. It makes the house feel like it was grown rather than built. In one corner, you see a special place. This is the red corner. In this part of the world, red also meant beautiful. It is the most important corner of the house. There is a small shelf with a holy picture, or an icon, and a little light burning in front of it. Even when the rest of the house is dark, this corner stays bright. It is where the family prays, and where they keep their most precious things. You look at it for a moment, and feel the peace of the room. Outside, the world is wild and dangerous. Inside, everything is orderly and calm. You begin to take off your heavy winter clothes. This is a slow process because you have so many layers. You unbutton the long kaftan. The fabric is cold to the touch on the outside, but the inside is still warm from your body. You hang it on a wooden peg near the door. Then you sit down on a bench to pull off your valenki, those thick felt boots. Your feet feel heavy and tired. When the boots come off, you are wearing thick woolen socks. They are a bit damp from the snow, so you peel them off too. Underneath your boots, you sometimes wear lapti. These are very old-fashioned shoes. They are made from the inner bark of a linden tree. The bark is cut into long strips and woven together to make a light, flexible shoe. People have worn lapti for hundreds of years. They are not very good for the deep snow, but they are perfect for wearing inside the house or during the muddy spring. You set them aside and feel the smooth wood of the floor under your bare feet. The wood is not cold. It has soaked up the heat of the stove all day long. The house is quiet, but it is not a dead silence. It is a living silence. You can hear the logs of the walls making little popping sounds as they settle. You can hear the wind brushing against the roof, but it sounds far away now, like a ghost crying in the distance. It cannot get to you. You are wrapped in the arms of the cabin. You look at the walls and notice the gaps between the logs. They are filled with something dark and fuzzy. This is dried moss. When the men built this house, they went into the forest and gathered heaps of moss from the ground. They laid a thick layer of it between every log. As the logs settled down, they squashed the moss until it was as tight as a seal. This moss is a wonderful thing. It breathes, but it does not let the heat out. It keeps the house dry and warm. It is a simple fact of history that without this moss and these thick logs, people could not have lived in the Siberian forest. The cold would have found every tiny crack and turned the house into a freezer. You walk further into the room, toward the center. The air gets warmer with every step you take. You are moving toward the source of the heat. The stove is so big that it feels like another wall. It is made of bricks and covered in a thick layer of white clay. It feels smooth and solid. You reach out and put your hand on the side of it. It isn't burning hot like a metal radiator. It is a gentle, deep heat. It feels like touching the skin of a large, sleeping animal. This is radiant heat. The bricks have been soaking up the fire all day, and now they are giving that heat back to the room bit by bit. You stand there for a moment of reflection. You think about how lucky you are to be inside. You think about the deer and the wolves out in the forest, huddling under the trees to stay away from the wind. You think about the trees themselves, standing brave in the frost. You feel a deep sense of safety. Here the rules of the winter do not apply. Here you can be warm. You can be still. You do not have to fight the wind anymore. You look around the room again. On the table there is a wooden salt cellar and a loaf of dark bread covered with a cloth. These are symbols of welcome. If a guest came to the door, the family would offer them bread and salt. It is a very old tradition. Even in the hardest winters, sharing what you have is the way people survive. You feel the hunger starting to wake up in your stomach. The smell of the rye bread is very strong now. It is a sour, hearty smell. It is the smell of the earth turned into food. You notice a small tool leaning against the side of the stove. It is a long wooden pole with a metal hook on the end. This is used to move the heavy iron pots in and out of the deep oven. The oven is a dark tunnel in the middle of the stove. Earlier in the day, a big fire was burning there. Now only the glowing embers remain, hidden deep inside. The pots are kept there to stay warm. There might be a cabbage soup, called shich, or a porridge made of buckwheat. You take a deep breath. The air is so much easier to breathe here than it was outside. It doesn't hurt your lungs. It feels soft and kind. You are starting to feel the tiredness in your bones. The walk through the snow was hard work, and the transition from the cold to the heat makes your eyelids feel heavy. It is a good kind of tired. It is the feeling of a job done. You have made it home. You have finished your shift in the cold. You look up at the top of the stove. It is a high, flat platform. In the dim light, you can see blankets and pillows piled up there. That is where you will go soon. But first, you must attend to the house. You must make sure everything is ready for the night. You move quietly, trying not to wake the others who are already resting. The house feels small, but it is a perfect world. It has everything you need. It has light, it has food, and above all, it has the heat. You stop by the small window. It is very small, only a tiny square of glass, and it is covered in thick frost. The frost has grown into beautiful patterns that look like ferns or feathers. You cannot see through it, but you know that on the other side, the blue darkness is turning into a deep, pitch black. The stars are out, and the temperature is falling even further. But that world is gone now. You are in the world of the wooden Izba. You are in the world of the hearth. You feel the weight of your day falling away. The simple act of being inside is a luxury. We often forget how much of a gift a warm room is. For the people of the night shift in history, warmth was something they had to work for every single day. They had to chop the wood, carry the water, and build the fire. Every bit of heat was earned. This makes the warmth feel much more valuable. You don't just feel it on your skin, you feel it in your soul. You are home, and you are safe. The wooden walls are strong, and the stove is waiting for you. Now that you are inside and your heavy coat is hanging on its peg, your eyes are drawn to the center of the room. It is impossible to ignore. In the middle of this small log house stands a giant. This is the Pech. In your language, you would simply call it a stove, but that word feels too small for something this big. It is a massive block of clay and brick that takes up nearly a quarter of the entire living space. It is the heart of the home, the source of life, and the reason you are not shivering right now. You walk toward it slowly. The floorboards under your feet feel solid and warm. The Pech is painted a bright, clean white. Every year, the family covers the rough clay with a fresh coat of lime. Lime is a white powder mixed with water that makes the stove look like a giant block of sugar. It makes the room feel brighter, catching the small amount of light from the oil lamp and throwing it back into the corners. As you get closer, you can see the texture of the surface. It is not perfectly smooth like a modern wall. You can see the gentle bumps and dips where human hands shaped the wet clay long ago. It feels like a piece of the earth has been brought inside and taught how to keep people warm. The stove is built in a very smart way. It is not just a box for a fire, it is a maze of tunnels. When the wood burns in the mouth of the stove, the hot air does not just go straight up a chimney and out into the cold night. Instead, the heat has to travel through long, winding paths inside the brick walls. As the hot air moves, the bricks soak up all that heat. By the time the air finally leaves the house, it is almost cool. All that energy stays inside the clay. This is a very important fact of history. A well-built Russian stove can stay warm for 24 hours after the fire has gone out. This meant that the family only had to light a big fire once a day, usually in the early morning. For the rest of the day, and through the long dark night, the stove would slowly breathe out its warmth. You reach out and place your palm against the white side of the Pech. It is not hot enough to burn you. It feels like the warmth of a person's skin or the feeling of a stone that has been sitting in the summer sun all afternoon. The heat is deep. It doesn't just warm your hand. It feels like it is warming the bones inside your hand. You lean your shoulder against the stove. You can feel the heat soaking through your linen shirt and spreading across your back. It is a heavy, comforting feeling. It makes your muscles relax, taking away the tightness that the freezing wind put there just a few minutes ago. You look at the front of the stove. There is a large, arched opening. This is the mouth, or the gorno. It is like a dark cave that reaches deep into the belly of the stove. Earlier today, this cave was filled with roaring flames and the crackle of birch logs. Now, the fire has died down. Deep inside, you can see a pile of glowing red embers. They look like a hoard of tiny, bright jewels hidden in the dark. Every now and then, a tiny blue flame licks the top of a coal, dancing for a second before vanishing. The light from these embers casts a soft orange glow on the floor in front of the stove. Leaning against the wall nearby is a piece of microhistory you use every day. It is the zaslonka. This is a heavy shutter made of iron with a small handle. When the fire is burning high, the shutter is left open to let the air in. But now that the fire is mostly gone, you pick up the zaslonka. It is heavy and cool in your hands. You slide it into place, covering the mouth of the stove. This acts like a lid on a pot. It keeps the heat trapped inside the belly of the stove, so it doesn't escape up the chimney. As you slide the metal into the groove, it makes a soft clink and then a scraping sound against the stone. Now the room is even quieter. The light from the embers is hidden behind the iron door, and only the small oil lamp provides light. You stand there in the dimness, listening. There is a moment of deep silence. In this silence, you can almost hear the stove working. You can hear the faint, tiny creaks of the bricks as they expand and contract. You can hear the house settling into the night. This is the sound of safety. Outside, the winter is a loud, screaming thing. It bangs against the shutters and whistles through the trees. But inside, the Pech creates a zone of perfect calm. It is a silent protector. You look at how the stove is shaped. It is not just a flat block. It has different levels and ledges. Near the floor, there is a small hollow area where the family keeps a few logs of wood. This is a very clever trick. The heat from the stove dries out the wood so that when it is time to light the fire tomorrow, the logs will catch easily. The wood smells like the forest, a clean and sharp scent that mixes with the warm smell of the clay. Higher up, there are little niches or small holes built into the sides. These are called percherki. They are perfect for drying out small things. You see a pair of children's mittens tucked into one of these holes. You see a wet cloth hanging nearby. The stove is like a giant machine that does many jobs at once. It cooks the food, it heats the air, it dries the clothes, and eventually it provides a place to sleep. It is the center of everything. In the old days, a house without a Pech was not a house at all. If the stove cracked or broke, the family would be in great danger. Building a stove was a special job, done by masters who knew exactly how to balance the clay and the sand so it would not break under the heat. You step back and look at the whole thing. It is beautiful in its simplicity. It does not have fancy carvings or gold paint. It is just white clay and honest work. It looks strong and dependable. You think about all the winters this stove has seen. It has kept the grandparents warm, and it will keep the grandchildren warm. It is the one thing that never changes, even when the world outside is turning into ice. The heat coming off the Pech is different from the heat of a campfire. A campfire is hot on one side and cold on the other. It flickers and jumps. But the heat from the Pech is steady. It is like a tide that fills the room, reaching into every corner. It finds the cold spots under the table and chases them away. It makes the air feel thick and soft, like you are walking through a cloud of warm wool. Your eyes are starting to feel heavy. The warmth is a powerful medicine for a tired body. You look at the top of the stove again. It is high up, almost reaching the ceiling. It is a flat platform made of the same warm bricks and clay. To get out there, you have to use a small wooden ladder or a set of built-in steps made of wood. From down here, the top of the stove looks like a secret world. It is the warmest place in the entire house because heat always rises. While the floor might be a little bit cool, the air at the top of the stove is like a tropical summer. You think about the people of the night shift who came before you. For hundreds of years, they stood exactly where you are standing. They felt this same heat. They looked at the same white walls. There is a great comfort in that. You are part of a long line of humans who have found a way to be cozy in the middle of a frozen wilderness. You are not alone in the dark. You have the stove, and the stove is a friend that never sleeps. You take a small wooden stool and sit down for a moment. You want to just look at the stove and appreciate it before you climb up for the night. The way the shadows of the chairs and the table fall across the white clay makes it look like a piece of art. The room is getting darker as the oil in the lamp runs low. The world is shrinking down until it is just you and this great, warm mountain. You feel a sense of peace that is hard to find during the day. During the day, there is wood to chop, water to carry, and animals to feed. But at night, the work is done. The Pech has taken over the job of keeping the family alive. It is doing its work silently and well. You can feel the tension leaving your neck and shoulders. You take a deep, slow breath. The air is warm and smells of the hearth. In this moment, the freezing Siberian forest feels like it is 1,000 miles away. You are in a sanctuary. You are in the sanctuary. You are in the heart of the Izba. The Pech is standing guard, its thick walls holding onto the fire's memory, ready to share that warmth with you all through the night. You look at the ladder, knowing that soon you will climb it. You will leave the floor behind and go to the place where the cold cannot follow. But for now you just sit, watching the soft light and feeling the pulse of the radiant heat against your tired skin. You stand beside the massive stove, your body leaning closer to the white curved surface. It is a large, solid presence in the middle of the room. Now that you've closed the iron door to the fire, the room is very dark, but you do not need your eyes to know where the stove is. You can feel it. It is like a large, gentle animal that is breathing warmth onto your skin. You reach out your hand again, but this time you do not just touch it with your fingertips. You press your whole palm against the side of the Pech. The surface feels wonderful. It is not like the cold, hard stone you might find outside in the forest. Because it is covered in many layers of clay and lime, it feels almost soft, like very old, smooth wood. It is slightly rough in some places and perfectly flat in others. You run your hand along the side, feeling the gentle curves. This stove was not made by a machine in a factory. It was built by a man called a Pechnik, or a stove maker. He spent days mixing the earth with his own hands, piling up the bricks and smoothing the clay until it was just right. As you touch the wall of the stove, you are feeling a very old piece of science, though it feels more like magic. This is a masonry stove. The word masonry just means it is made of stone or brick. The clever thing about these bricks is how they hold on to heat. In history, people learn that metal gets hot very fast, but it also cools down very fast. If this stove were made of iron, the room would be freezing by midnight. But these clay bricks are different. They are slow. They take a long time to get warm, but once they are hot, they stay hot for a very, very long time. They act like a battery, but instead of holding electricity, they hold the heat of the fire. You find a spot where the clay is particularly warm and press your forehead against it. The warmth travels through your skin and into your head, making your thoughts feel slow and heavy. It is a deep, quiet heat. You can feel the weight of the stove. It is heavy, solid, and dependable. It is not going anywhere. It has been sitting on this same spot for decades, and it will likely stay here for many more. In the winter, the world outside is always changing. The snow falls, the wind blows, and the ice shifts. But the stove is always the same. It is the one thing you can count on. You notice a small mark on the wall of the stove, a tiny line where the clay has a different texture. This is where the stove maker used a special tool called a malka. A malka is a simple wooden board with a straight edge. The maker used it to scrape the wet clay and make it perfectly level. Even though he was very careful, you can still see the little signs of his work. It reminds you that this house was made by people who cared about keeping their families safe. Every inch of this white wall was smoothed over with a purpose. It was made to be a shield against the Siberian frost. You move your hand higher up the wall. As you go higher, the clay feels even warmer. This is because the hot air from the fire has been swirling through the tunnels inside for hours. These tunnels are like the veins in your arm, but instead of blood, they carry the spirit of the fire. The heat is soaked up by the thick walls, which are often as thick as the length of your forearm. This thickness is very important. It means the heat has to work hard to get through to the outside. This is why the stove stays warm all night. It lets the heat out slowly, bit by bit, like a secret being whispered instead of a shout. A simple historical fact about these stoves is that they were built using a very specific recipe. The stove maker didn't just use any dirt he found on the ground. He mixed 3 parts sand with 1 part rich red clay. Sometimes he would add a little bit of horsehair or chopped straw into the mix. This might sound strange, but it was very clever. The hair and straw acted like tiny skeletons inside the clay, holding it together so that when the stove got very hot, it would not crack. It made the stove strong and flexible at the same time. You can feel that strength now as you lean your weight against the wall. It does not budge. It feels as solid as a mountain. The room is getting warmer now. The frost on the tiny window is starting to thin just a little bit, though the night is still very cold outside. You can hear the logs of the house making a soft cracking sound. This is the wood of the walls reacting to the heat. As the cabin warms up, the logs grow just a tiny bit bigger, pressing against each other. It is a cozy sound. It sounds like the house is stretching its limbs and getting comfortable for the night. You take your hand off the stove for a second. The skin of your palm is pink and warm. You touch your own cheek with your warm hand and smile. You can feel the life returning to every part of you. The walk through the woods feels like a dream now, something that happened to someone else in another world. In this world, there is only the white wall and the gentle heat. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You stand there, not moving a muscle. You just listen to the silence of the room. It is a heavy, warm silence. You can feel the air moving around you, a slow circle of warmth rising from the stove and falling back down as it reaches the cold corners. This movement of air is so soft you can barely feel it, like someone blowing gently on the back of your neck. It is the breath of the house. You look at the base of the stove. There are small wooden blocks near the floor to keep the clay from getting chipped. Everything about the Pech is designed for a long life. It is not a gadget that will break in a year. It is a companion. In many old stories, people treated their stove like they were alive. They would talk to the stove or leave a little bit of food near it for the spirits. When you feel the heat coming off these walls, it is easy to see why. It feels like there is a heart beating somewhere deep inside the brickwork. You move your fingers across the surface, finding the little bumps where the lime paint has built up over the years. Each layer of white paint represents a year of life. 1 layer for the year the harvest was good. 1 layer for the year the great snow came. 1 layer for the year a new baby was born. The stove has seen it all. It has been the silent witness to everything that has happened in this little wooden room. It has felt the touch of many hands, some small and soft, some old and rough. Now, it is feeling your hands. The warmth is making you feel very drowsy. It is the kind of heat that makes your muscles feel like melting butter. You feel the tension in your legs finally letting go. All day you have been fighting against the cold, tensing your body to stay warm. But here, you don't have to fight. You can just let go. The stove will do the work for you. It is a strange and wonderful feeling to trust an object so much. You know that, as long as this stove is warm, you are safe. You think about the people of the night shift who are still outside. Perhaps there is a hunter still checking his traps, or a traveler who didn't make it to the village in time. You hope they find a place as warm as this. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for the people who figured out how to build these massive heaters. They were clever people who didn't have much, but they knew how to use the earth and the fire to create a little bit of heaven in a frozen land. You lean back against the wall of the stove, feeling the heat move into your spine. Your back is the coldest part of you right now, and the stove feels like a warm hug. You close your eyes for a moment. The darkness behind your eyelids is filled with the orange memory of the fire. You can still smell the wood and the clay. It is a clean, honest smell. It smells like safety. It smells like home. The stove is not just a building or a tool. It is a promise. It is a promise that no matter how dark the night gets, There will be light. No matter how cold the wind blows, there will be heat. You reach out one last time and pat the side of the stove, a little thank you to the giant in the room. The clay is solid. The bricks are full of fire. The night shift of survival is coming to an end, and the night shift of rest is beginning. You stand up straight and take a slow, deep breath. The air is so warm it feels thick in your lungs. You are ready to move on to the next part of your evening. You have checked the door, you have felt the heat, and you have connected with the heart of the house. The massive stove stands there, white and glowing in the dim light, ready to carry you through the hours of darkness until the sun comes back to the Siberian forest. You look around the small room once more. The shadows are long and soft. The house spirit is surely watching from somewhere behind the chimney, happy that the stove is warm and the family is safe. You feel a sense of belonging. You are not just a visitor here, you are part of the cycle of the seasons. You are a person of the hearth. The cold can try to get in, but the clay walls of the Pech are standing guard. They have held the heat for 1,000 years, and they will hold it for you tonight. You move away from the white wall of the stove and look toward the woodpile. It sits in the corner, a neat stack of logs that you brought in earlier to dry. Before the night truly takes hold, the fire needs one last feeding. This is the final task of the day. It is a simple job, but it is one that feels very important. Feeding the fire is like feeding a member of the family. If the fire is happy, the house is happy. If the fire is strong, the winter cannot get inside. You reach down and pick up a log. It is birch wood. In the history of these cold lands, birch has always been the favorite wood for the stove. People prefer it because it burns with a very hot, steady flame. It does not spark or pop as much as pine does, which makes it safer for a wooden house. Birch is also very easy to light because of its bark. You look at the log in your hands. The bark is white and silvery, like a piece of old paper. It peels away in thin, curly strips. Even when the wood is a little bit damp, this papery bark will catch fire instantly because it's full of natural oils. You carry the logs over to the front of the Pech. You reach for a specific tool leaning in the shadows. It is the koshikea. This is a long iron poker with a hook at the end. It is heavy and cold to the touch. You use it to reach deep into the dark mouth of the stove. As you slide the iron across the floor of the oven, it makes a ringing metallic sound that echoes inside the clay tunnels. Scrape, clink, scrape. You move the red coals around, spreading them out to make a flat bed of heat. The glow is very bright now that you have opened the iron door. It paints your hands and your face in a deep, warm orange. You begin to stack the birch logs inside. You do not just throw them in. You have to be clever about how you build the fire. You place 2 logs side by side, leaving a little gap between them. Then you place another log across the top. This creates a little chimney inside the fire itself. The air can flow through the gaps, feeding the flames so they grow tall and strong. This is a skill passed down from fathers to sons and mothers to daughters. Everyone in the village knows how to talk to the fire in this way. As the new wood touches the hot coals, you hear a soft hissing sound. This is the last bit of moisture escaping from the bark. Then, with a sudden whoosh, the silvery bark catches. Small, bright yellow flames begin to lick the sides of the birch logs. They start small, dancing like tiny spirits, but quickly they grow. They turn from yellow to a deep, rich gold. You can see the edges of the bark curling and turning black, then glowing white as they turn into ash. A microhistory detail you might notice is the lucina. These are thin, dried splinters of wood, usually about the length of your forearm. Before everyone had easy access to candles or oil, the lucina was the main source of light in the house. A peasant would stick one end of the splinter into a metal holder on the wall and light the other end. It would burn with a small, steady flame for a few minutes. Tonight, you use a small lucina to reach back into the corners of the stove, making sure the fire is catching everywhere. The smell of the burning birch is wonderful. It is sweet and clean, nothing like the heavy, thick smoke of a coal fire. You sit back on your heels and watch the fire grow. The mouth of the stove is like a stage, and the flames are the performers. They jump and twist, casting long, jumping shadows across the room. The shadows of the table legs look like giant fingers stretching across the floorboards. The shadows of the hanging herbs look like swaying ghosts. But you are not afraid. The light is too warm and too bright for any real fear to live here. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You do not move. You do not speak. You just watch the fire. The only sound is the rhythmic crackle pop of the wood and the low, steady roar of the air being sucked into the stove. This roar is a good sound. It means the chimney is clear and the fire is breathing. In the silence, you feel heat hitting your face. It is much stronger now than the gentle warmth of the clay walls. It is a sharp, prickly heat that makes you want to squint your eyes. It feels like the sun is sitting right there in the middle of your living room. You think about the history of the fire. For thousands of years, humans have sat like this. In caves, in tents, and in log cabins like this one, we have always watched the flames. It is the most basic form of relaxation. It clears your mind of all the worries of the day. You are not thinking about the broken fence or the deep snow outside. You are only thinking about the gold and the orange and the red. You are watching the wood turn from a solid, heavy thing into heat and light. It is a beautiful change to witness. The birch logs are now fully covered in flame. The fire is so bright that you have to look away for a second. The heat is pushing back the shadows, reaching into the very corners of the house. You can see the dust motes dancing in the air, turned into tiny sparks of gold by the light. The room feels bigger now, filled with the energy of the burning wood. You feel a sense of pride. You have fed the giant, and the giant is happy. It will take this wood and turn it into safety for your family. You take the iron poker one last time and give the logs a gentle nudge. A shower of tiny sparks flies up into the dark throat of the chimney. They look like a miniature version of the stars you saw outside, but these stars belong to you. They are warm and friendly. You watch them until the last one disappears into the darkness. In this part of the world, gathering wood is the work of many months. During the late summer and the colourful autumn, the men spend days in the forest with their axes. They look for the oldest birch trees, the ones that are ready to give up their wood. They haul the logs back on sledges or carts and spend weeks chopping them into the right size. Every single log you put into the stove represents hours of hard work. When you see it burn, you are seeing the result of all that sweat and effort. It makes the warmth feel much more personal. It is not something that just happens, it is something you made happen. The fire has reached its peak. The flames are no longer jumping wildly. They have settled into a steady, powerful glow. The logs are becoming translucent, looking like they are made of molten glass. You know that soon they will crumble into coals, adding their heat to the thick bed of embers already there. This is the best time to close the door. You want to trap all that energy inside. You reach for the iron zaslonka, the heavy shutter. It is still leaning where you left it. You lift it up, feeling the weight in your arms. Your muscles are tired, but it is a good tiredness. You slide the metal shutter into the mouth of the stove. It fits perfectly, cutting off the bright light. Suddenly the room is dim again. The only light comes from the small oil lamp and the tiny cracks around the edges of the iron door. The change is startling. The room feels smaller and quieter once more, but you can still hear the fire. It is a muffled, low sound now, like a secret being kept. You stand up slowly, stretching your back. Your legs feel a bit stiff from crouching, but the heat has made them feel light. You look at the stove. Even with the door closed, you can feel the extra heat you just added. It is radiating through the iron and starting to soak into the bricks. By the time you are ready to sleep, the top of the stove will be the perfect temperature. Feeding the fire is the last active job of the night. From here on, the night belongs to the rest. You have done your part. You have ensured that the house will remain a sanctuary against the Siberian winter. The night shift of the peasant is often about these small, repetitive tasks that mean the difference between life and death. A fire left untended could go out, and in 40 degrees, that is a disaster. But your fire is strong. It is healthy. It is fed. You take a deep breath of the air. It still has that hint of birch smoke, a smell that will linger in your hair and your clothes. It is a smell that says you belong here. You are a person of the woods and the hearth. You look at the woodpile. There is still plenty of wood left for tomorrow. This brings a feeling of peace. You have enough. You are prepared. The room is very warm now. You can feel a bead of sweat on your forehead. A strange thing when you remember the ice on the trees outside. You wipe it away with the back of your hand. It is time to let the fire do its work in private. The bricks will take that heat and hold it tight, whispering it back to the room all through the long, dark hours. You look at the stove one last time, a white mountain in the shadows, and feel a deep bond with it. You have fed it, and in return it will protect you. You move quietly away, heading toward the table where a small cup of water is waiting. Your throat feels a bit dry from the heat of the fire. As you drink, you look at the tiny window. The frost is still there, thick and white, but it doesn't seem so cold anymore. The world outside can do what it likes. Inside, the fire is burning, the bricks are warming, and the night is moving on. You have finished the work of the hands. Now it is time for the work of the heart, resting and dreaming in the warmth of the Pech. As you sit there by the massive white stove, a new sensation begins to drift through the air. At first it is very faint. It is a tiny hint of something sour and earthy. But as the minutes go by, the smell grows stronger and heavier. It is the smell of baking rye bread. In this house, bread is not just something you eat with a meal. Bread is the meal. It is the most important food in the world for a person living in the frozen lands of the north. You close your eyes and let the scent fill your nose. It is a deep, rich smell. It is different from the light, sweet smell of white bread you might find in a city bakery. This is black bread, made from dark rye grain. It smells of the soil, of the summer sun, and of the hard work of the harvest. It is a smell that promises you will not be hungry. It is a smell that says the house is full of life. Even though the fire is now hidden behind the iron door, its heat is busy doing a very important job inside the belly of the Pech. Earlier in the day, before the sun even thought about rising, the work for this bread began. You can see the large wooden tub sitting on a bench in the corner. This is a microhistory detail called a kadushka. It is a deep bucket made of oak wood slats held together with iron hoops. Inside that tub, the dough was mixed. It wasn't made with fancy yeast from a packet. It was made using a starter, a piece of old dough kept from the last time bread was baked. This starter is alive. It has a sharp, tangy smell that makes your mouth water. The dough was kneaded by hand for a long time, the heavy grey paste sticking to the skin until it became smooth and stretchy. Then it was left to rest near the warmth of the stove. As the dough sat in the kadushka, it slowly grew and puffed up, filling the tub until it almost spilled over the top. This is the magic of the warm house. Without the heat from the clay walls, the bread would never rise. It would stay flat and hard like a stone. But the Pech is kind to the bread. It gives the dough the energy it needs to grow big and soft. You look at the iron door of the stove. You know that behind that metal plate, several large round loaves are sitting on the hot stone floor of the oven. They are not in tins or pans. They are sitting directly on the floor of the stove, which was swept clean with a special brush made of pine branches. This gives the bottom of the bread a wonderful, thick crust. To get the bread inside, a special tool was used. It is called a lopata. This is a very long wooden shovel with a flat round end. The raw dough was placed on the lopata, and then it was slid deep into the dark, hot tunnel of the stove. With a quick flick of the wrist, the dough was dropped onto the hot bricks and the shovel was pulled back out. A simple historical fact about this bread is that it was often the only thing a peasant family had to eat during the hardest parts of winter. Because of this, bread was treated with great respect. People believed that bread was a gift from the earth and from God. There was a rule that if you ever dropped a piece of bread on the floor, you had to pick it up immediately, blow off the dust and kiss it. This was your way of saying sorry for being careless with something so precious. To waste even a single crumb was considered a very bad thing. It would bring bad luck to the house. The smell is changing now. The sour scent is being replaced by a toasted, nutty smell. The crust is becoming hard and brown. You can almost imagine the steam trapped inside the loaf, pushing against the heavy dough and making it light and airy. The heat of the Pech is perfect for this. Because the bricks are so thick, they give off a steady, even heat. It does not go up and down like a modern oven. It stays exactly the same, baking the bread from the top, the bottom, and the sides all at once. This is why the bread from a Russian stove tastes better than any other bread in the world. It is cooked by the heart of the house. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You sit perfectly still, watching the way the dim light hits the wooden tub. You can hear the bread singing. As the crust hardens and the bread cools just a tiny bit, it makes tiny cracking sounds. Crackle. Snap. It is very quiet, like the sound of a tiny bird walking on dry leaves. In the silence of the room, this sound is very clear. You breathe in deeply, filling your lungs with the warm, bready air. It feels like the smell is hugging you. It makes you feel full, even before you have taken a bite. You think about the fields where the rye grew. During the short, hot summer, the stalks of rye grew tall and golden under the bright sun. The wind would move through the fields, making them look like a waving ocean of grain. The family spent long days in the heat, cutting the rye with hand tools and tying it into bundles. They worked until their backs ached and their hands were rough. All that work, all that sweat was for this moment. All those summer days were captured in the grain, and now the stove is releasing that summer energy back into your kitchen. The bread is like a clock. You can tell what time of day it is just by how it smells. In the morning it smells like wet flour. In the afternoon it smells tangy and sharp. And now in the deep evening it smells like home. It is a sign that the day is truly ending. Once the bread is pulled out of the stove, the biggest job of the day is finished. The family can eat, and then they can sleep. You look at the table. There is a clean linen cloth waiting there. When the bread comes out, it will be wrapped in this cloth. This is another important step. The cloth lets the bread breathe while it cools down. If you put it on a cold plate, the bottom would get soggy, but wrapped in the linen, the crust stays crisp and the inside stays moist. The bread will stay fresh for a long week, and it will get even better as the days go by. You feel a sense of peace. The night shift of the baker is a quiet one. It is a shift of waiting and watching. You don't have to do much now, you just have to trust the stove. The Pech knows exactly what to do. It has baked thousands of loaves over the years. It knows how to turn a lump of grey dough into a golden brown treasure. You feel lucky to be here, in this warm room with the smell of the earth filling the air. The darkness outside doesn't matter. The 40-degree wind doesn't matter. Inside this circle of warmth, there is food. There is the promise of a full stomach. This is the simple secret to surviving the Siberian winter. You need thick logs for your walls, a massive stove for your heat, and dark rye bread for your belly. With those three things, you are richer than a king. You lean your head back against the wall. The warmth of the stove is still seeping into your shoulders, and the smell of the bread is making your heart feel light. You think about the generations of people who have sat in this exact spot, smelling this exact smell. Your grandfather and his grandfather before him. They all knew this feeling. They all knew the comfort of a warm kitchen and a fresh loaf. It makes you feel like you are part of something very big and very old. The rye bread is the father of the Russian table. Without it, a meal is not complete. Even if you have soup and meat and vegetables, you still need the bread to make it a real dinner. It is the foundation of life. As you sit in the dim light, you feel a deep respect for the grain and the fire. They work together to keep you alive. They are the heroes of the night. You watch a small shadow move across the floor. It is the shadow of the lapata leaning against the wall. It looks like a tall, thin person standing guard. You feel safe. You feel at home. The smell of the rye is a blanket that covers the whole room, softening the edges of the night and making the world feel kind. You take one more deep breath, tasting the salt and the grain on your tongue. The bread is almost ready. The night is moving forward, one warm breath at a time. Soon the iron door will be opened, the golden loaves will be revealed, and the house will be filled with the final wonderful scent of a finished day. You close your eyes and imagine the first bite, the crunch of the thick crust, the soft, slightly sour middle, the way it warms your throat as you swallow. It is the best food in the world, because you have waited for it. You have walked through the snow for it. You have fed the fire for it. The bread is your reward for surviving another day in the wild, and as the smell continues to swirl around you, you know that the reward is going to be very, very good. In the deep, warm quiet of the room, a new sound begins to rise. It is not the wind, and it is not the wood popping in the stove. It is a tiny rhythmic sound. Chirp, chirp, chirp. It is very steady, like the ticking of a wooden clock. This is the sound of the hearth cricket. In this part of the world, the cricket is not just a bug that got inside by mistake. It is a very special guest. People call it the sverchok. For hundreds of years, Russian families have believed that a cricket living in the stove is a sign of the very best luck. If you have a cricket singing in your house, it means the house is healthy, the fire is good, and the family will have enough money to get through the year. You lean your head back and listen to the song. It is a sharp, clear sound that seems to vibrate in the warm air. The cricket is likely hidden deep in one of the tiny cracks of the white clay walls. It loves the Pech just as much as you do. While the world outside is frozen solid, the cricket has found a secret paradise inside the bricks. It sits in the darkness, tucked away where no one can touch it, feeling the same radiant heat that is currently warming your shoulders. It is a very small creature, no bigger than your thumb. but its voice is strong enough to fill the whole room. A micro-history detail about these little singers is that they were often treated like tiny pets. Some families would even leave a few crumbs of that dark rye bread or a tiny drop of water near the base of the stove just for the cricket. They wanted to make sure the sverchok stayed happy, so it would keep singing. There was an old saying that if the cricket suddenly stopped singing or left the house, bad luck was coming. People would go to great lengths to make sure nothing bothered their little guest. They would talk softly near the stove and move carefully so as not to scare it away. To you, tonight, the sound is like a lullaby. It tells you that everything is as it should be. The cricket makes its sound by rubbing its wings together. It is a physical act of movement, a little dance of joy in the heat. In the silence of the Siberian night, this sound becomes the heartbeat of the cabin. It cuts through the heavy feeling of the dark and brings a bit of life to the shadows. You imagine the cricket sitting on a warm brick, its long feelers twitching in the air, sensing the steam from the bread and the warmth of the embers. It is a fellow member of the night shift. While the people sleep, the cricket stays awake, keeping watch with its song. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You stay perfectly still. You hold your breath for a moment, just to see if you can hear the tiny scrape of the cricket's legs against the clay. The room is so quiet that you can hear the blood rushing in your ears, a soft whoosh sound. And through it all, the cricket continues. Chirp, chirp, chirp.
It is.
It is a very ancient sound. Thousands of years ago, people in simple huts heard this same noise. It is a sound that has not changed, while the rest of the world has become loud and busy. Here in this log cabin, time has slowed down to the speed of a cricket's wing. A simple historical fact about the sverchok is its connection to the house spirit, the domovoi. People believed the domovoi was a small bearded man who lived behind the stove and looked after the house. Some said the cricket was the spirit's favourite animal, or even that the spirit spoke through the cricket. If the cricket was singing happily, it meant the domovoi was pleased with the family. It meant you had chopped enough wood, kept the floor clean, and treated the bread with respect. Hearing the cricket makes you feel like you have passed a test. You have done your work well, and the spirit of the house is happy to let you rest. The sound is very soothing. It has a pattern that your brain can follow without thinking. It is not like the wind, which changes speed and direction and makes you feel uneasy. The cricket is predictable. It is a constant. You feel your eyelids drooping even lower. The heat from the clay walls is making your body feel heavy, and the song of the cricket is making your mind feel soft. You are drifting into a state where you are not quite awake, but not yet asleep. You're just being. You are a part of the room, just like the table, the benches, and the stove itself. You think about how strange it is that such a small thing can make a person feel so safe. In the middle of a wilderness that could freeze a man in minutes, this tiny insect is thriving. It is a reminder that life is tough. Life finds a way to stay warm. If this little cricket can find a home in the cracks of a clay stove, then you can find a way to survive the winter too. It gives you a sense of courage. The Siberian forest is big and scary, but your world is small and manageable. Your world has a white stove, a loaf of bread, and a lucky cricket. The air in the room is very still. The smoke from the lamp rises in a thin, straight line. The cricket's song seems to travel along the logs of the walls, echoing gently in the corners. You look at the dark shadows under the benches. You don't see anything scary there. The shadows look soft, like velvet. Everything in the room has been touched by the heat. Even the air in the furthest corner is no longer cold. The Pech has won the battle against the night. You shift your weight on the stool, and the wood makes a little groan. The cricket stops for a second. The sudden silence is startling. It feels like the room is holding its breath. You stay very still, waiting. Then, after a few heartbeats, it starts again. Cheer up, cheer up, cheer up. It is a little bit slower now, as if the cricket is also getting sleepy. You smile to yourself. It is a nice thought to think of a sleepy cricket tucked into a warm brick bed. The heat of the stove is now at its perfect point. It has travelled all the way through the thick bricks and is pushing out into the room with full strength. You feel the warmth on your shins and your knees. You feel it on your chest. It is a total embrace. The smell of the rye bread is still there, but it has settled into the background. The main thing now is the heat and the sound. The night shift of the sverchok is a noble one. It provides the music for the house. It turns a silent, empty space into a home that feels lived in and loved. You think of the autumn days when the crickets first moved inside. When the first frost hit the grass and the leaves turned yellow and red, the crickets knew it was time to find a shelter. They followed the warmth, crawling through the tiny gaps in the logs, drawn to the massive clay heart of the house. They have been here all winter, and they will stay until the snow melts and the first flowers appear in the fields. They are your companions through the long dark. You are never truly alone in an Izba if you have a cricket. In the old stories, people said that a house without a cricket was a cold house, even if the fire was burning. They meant that the house lacked soul. A home needs more than just wood and stone. It needs the small signs of life that show it as a place of peace. As you listen to the spechok, you feel that soul. You feel the history of all the people who sat here before you. Listening to this same song, it connects you to the past in a way that books and stories cannot. It is a living piece of history. Your breathing starts to slow down, matching the rhythm of the cricket. In, out, chirp, chirp. The world outside is 1,000 miles away. The wolves, the ice, the frozen rivers, they belong to another planet. Here, there is only the golden light of the oil lamp, the white mountain of the stove, and the tiny voice in the wall. You feel a deep sense of belonging. This is where you are supposed to be. This is your place in the world. The cricket song is a bridge between the day and the night. It marks the time when the work is finished and the rest begins. It is the final signal that it is okay to let go of the world. You don't have to worry about the morning yet. The morning is far away, hidden behind hours of darkness. For now, there is only this moment. There is only the warmth and the song. You let the sound wash over you, feeling it vibrate in your very bones. It is a lucky sound. It is a safe sound. It is a safe sound. It is the sound of a Siberian home in the heart of winter. You look at the stove one last time. You can't see the cricket, but you know exactly where it is. It is part of the Pech now, a tiny inhabitant of the clay. You feel a sense of gratitude for your little guest. Thank you, little Svechok, for the luck. Thank you for the song. You close your eyes and let the rhythm take you further down into the warmth. The night is long, but it is filled with music. The watchman of the hearth is singing, and all is well in the wooden world. Now that the fire has been fed and the cricket is singing, it is time to take care of yourself. You are still sitting on the low wooden stool, but your body feels heavy and stiff. Your feet, in particular, feel like 2 blocks of cold wood. Even though you took off your heavy felt boots when you first came in, your feet are still tucked into thick woolen socks that have been damp from the long war. It is time to let them breathe. It is time to feel the true warmth of the house. You reach down and begin to pull off your socks. They are made of heavy, coarse wool that was spun by hand on a wooden wheel. They are grey and thick, and they smell faintly of sheep and the snowy forest. As you peel them off, you feel a sudden rush of cool air on your skin. But it only lasts for a second. The floorboards beneath you are made of wide pine planks, and they have been soaking up the heat from the stove all day. As your bare feet touch the wood, you feel a gentle, dry warmth. It is one of the best feelings in the world. You lean forward and begin to rub your feet with your hands. This is a very important part of the night. In the history of the cold north, people had to be very careful with their feet. If your feet got too cold and stayed wet, you could get sick or lose a toe to the frost. Every evening, a peasant would spend time massaging their feet to make sure the blood was flowing well. You rub your heels and pull on each toe, feeling the tingly sensation as the warmth of the room works its way into your skin. Your skin looks pale in the light of the oil lamp, but soon it turns a healthy pink. A microhistory detail you might notice is the footcloths, or onuchi, lying near your boots. Before everyone had knitted socks, many people used these long strips of linen or wool. They would wrap them carefully around their feet and ankles before sliding into their boots. It took a long time to learn how to wrap them perfectly so they wouldn't bunch up and cause blisters. You look at your socks and your boots and feel glad for the simple comfort they give you. Without these basic things, no one could survive a single day in the Siberian winter. You pick up your damp socks and look for a place to put them. You don't just throw them on the floor. In a small house, everything must be in its place. You walk over to the stove and find a small wooden peg or a line of string hanging near the warm clay. You hang the socks there. The heat from the Pech will go to work immediately. By morning, the wool will be bone dry and toasted warm, ready for another day in the snow. This is part of the night shift cycle. Everything you wore today must be dried and readied for tomorrow. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You stand there by the stove, barefooted on the warm floor. You don't move, you just feel the weight of your body pressing down on the wood. The silence of the house seems to wrap around you like a heavy blanket. You can hear the distant muffled sound of a cow moving in the shed attached to the back of the house. The animals are also tucked away, safe from the frost. The house feels like a living thing, a giant shell that is protecting everything inside it. A simple historical fact about these homes is that the floor was often built quite high off the ground. Underneath the floorboards was a space called the podpali. This was like a small basement where the family kept their potatoes, carrots, and jars of pickled cabbage. Because the stove was so heavy and so warm, some of that heat would go down through the floor and keep the vegetables from freezing. Even the food had a warm place to sleep. You can feel that warmth coming up through the wood, keeping your souls cozy. You move back to the bench and sit down, stretching your legs out in front of you. You wiggle your toes, enjoying the freedom. All day they were trapped in boots and wrappings, fighting against the bite of the ice. Now, they are free. The air in the room is so warm that you don't even feel a draft. The thick log walls and the moss in the cracks are doing their job perfectly. You feel a deep sense of luxury. You don't need gold or silk to feel like a king. You just need a dry floor and a warm stove. You look at your boots, the Valenki, sitting by the door. They look like two tired grey soldiers resting after a long battle. You feel a bit of affection for them. They kept you safe while you walked through the black darkness of the forest. You make a mental note to check them for any thin spots in the morning. If the wool gets too thin, you will have to add a patch of felt or a piece of leather to the bottom. Taking care of your gear is how you stay alive. The light from the oil lamp is very low now. It casts long, flickering shadows that reach across the floor and climb up the white sides of the stove. The shadows of your own feet look giant on the wall. You watch them move as you wiggle your toes. It is a simple, almost childish thing to do, but it makes you feel peaceful. In the middle of the great winter, these small moments of comfort are what keep a person going. You are not just surviving, you are finding a way to be happy. You feel the tiredness moving up from your feet into your legs. Your calves feel heavy and your knees feel soft. The walk home was long and the snow was deep. Every step was a struggle against gravity and the wind. Now that you are sitting still, your body is finally starting to tell you how tired it really is. It is a good kind of exhaustion. It is the feeling of a day well spent. You have done your work, you have reached your home, and you have cared for your body. You take a deep breath. The air is still filled with the scent of the rye bread and the birch smoke. It feels thick and nourishing in your lungs. You look around the room at the simple wooden furniture. The table, the benches, the shelves, they're all made from the same trees that stand outside in the dark. The forest gives you the wood for your house, the wood for your fire, and even the bark for your shoes. You are deeply connected to the land, even in the middle of the night. You look at the stove one last time from your seat. It is a massive, silent guardian. Its white surface seems to glow in the dark, even though the lamp is dim. It is the source of all the comfort you are feeling right now. Without those hot bricks, the floor would be like ice and your feet would be numb. You feel a sense of gratitude for the stovemaker and the many people who learned how to tame the fire. The room is very quiet. Even the cricket has slowed down its song. You feel like you are the only person awake in the whole world. It is a lonely thought, but it isn't a sad one. It is a peaceful loneliness. You have this warm golden circle all to yourself for a few minutes. You can just be. You don't have to talk. You don't have to work. And you don't have to work. And you don't have to fight the cold. You just have to sit and feel the warmth. You prepare yourself for the next step. Soon, you will have to stand up and move toward the table for a drink or toward the ladder for sleep. But for now, you just stay where you are. You enjoy the feeling of the warm pine wood against your skin. You enjoy the tingle in your toes. You are a person of the night shift, and you have earned this moment of rest. The Siberian winter is big, but your circle of warmth is strong. You close your eyes for a second, and in the darkness, you can still feel the heat. It is like a physical weight pressing against you, holding you safe. You are tucked away in the heart of the forest, in the heart of the Izba. The world is frozen, but you are melting into the comfort of your home. Everything is ready. Everything is warm. Your boots are resting. Your socks are drying. And your journey for today is truly over. You stand up from the wooden bench, your bare feet enjoying the lingering warmth of the floorboards. Before you climb up to your high bed on the stove, There is one more thing your body needs. The air in the house is wonderful and warm, but the great Pech is a very dry heater. It drinks the moisture from the air just as it dries your woolen socks. Your throat feels a little bit tight and you are thirsty. You move toward the corner of the room where the water is kept. In a Siberian cabin, the water does not come from a tap. It has to be carried from the village well or a hole cut into the ice of the river. You look at the large wooden bucket sitting on a low bench. This is another piece of microhistory called a vedro. It is made of sturdy oak with iron bands around its middle to keep it from leaking. Floating on the surface of the clear, cold water is a carved wooden dipper. It is called a kovzhe. It is shaped like a small boat with a long handle, often carved to look like the head of a bird or a horse. You reach out and take the handle of the kovzhe. The wood is cool and smooth. You dip it into the bucket, and the sound of the water splashing is loud in the quiet room. Glug. Splash. The water is very cold, having been brought in from the outside not long ago. You lift the dipper to your lips and take a long, slow drink. The contrast is amazing. The outside of your body is wrapped in the heavy, dry heat of the stove, but the inside of your throat is now being cooled by the mountain water. It tastes clean and fresh, like the winter itself. A simple historical fact about these houses is that the water bucket was always kept in a specific place, usually near the door or the dirty area of the house. This was because water was a precious thing that took a lot of work to get. In the deep winter, someone had to walk out into the black darkness with a heavy iron bar to break the new ice that had grown over the waterhole since the morning. They would then carry 2 heavy buckets back on a wooden yoke across their shoulders. Every drop you drink is a result of that cold walk. It makes you sip slowly, making sure not to waste even a single mouthful. You put the wooden dipper back into the bucket and watch the ripples fade away. The water settles and you can see the reflection of the small oil lamp dancing on the surface. It looks like a tiny star trapped in a wooden sea. You feel much better now. The dryness in your throat is gone and you feel refreshed. This is the last step of the evening meal cycle. You have had the warmth of the fire, the smell of the bread, and now the cool gift of the water. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You stand there with your hand resting on the rim of the oak bucket. You listen to the house. The cricket has started up again, but it sounds softer now, as if it is also leaning into the night. The heat from the stove is still pushing out into the room, creating soft pressure against your skin. You feel very calm. The simple act of drinking water has grounded you. It reminds you that even in this harsh land, all your basic needs are met. You have shelter, you have heat, you have food, and you have water. You look at the small lamp on the table. The flame is very small now, just a tiny golden point of light. It is nearly out of oil. You don't bother to refill it. In the night shift of the peasant, once the work is done, you do not waste oil or candles. The light of the embers and the memory of the sun are enough. You will soon be in a place where you don't need your eyes to see. You will be in the world of sleep. You move back toward the center of the room. You pass the table where the crumbs of the rye bread sit. You see the long wooden benches where the younger children might sleep if the stove gets too crowded. But tonight, the top of the Pech is calling to you. You feel the pull of the high platform. It is the most coveted spot in the house. Only the very old or those who have worked the hardest get to sleep there. Tonight, that spot is yours. The heat in the room has reached a perfect balance. It is not so hot that it is hard to breathe, but it is warm enough that you could sleep without any clothes at all and still be comfortable. However, you keep your simple linen shirt on. The linen is soft from many washings and feels like a second skin. It is light and lets the heat of the stove reach your body easily. You feel light on your feet as you prepare for the climb. You look at the water bucket one last time. It is a humble object, but without it, the house could not function. In the morning, someone will have to take those buckets back out into the frost. The cycle will begin again, but that is a problem for tomorrow's sun. For now, the water is still and the house is quiet. You have finished your shift. You have cared for the fire, the floor, your feet, and your thirst. You take a deep breath, feeling the warm, dry air fill your lungs. You are ready. The massive white stove stands before you like a friendly mountain. You are about to leave the floor and the shadows behind. You are going up to the place where the winter can never reach you. You feel a sense of excitement, the way a child feels when they are allowed to stay up late or sleep in a special place. The top of the stove is not just a bed, it is a reward. The time has finally come to leave the floor behind. You stand at the base of the massive Pech, looking up at the high platform that will be your bed tonight. In the dim light, the top of the stove looks like a secret loft, a warm island floating in the dark of the cabin. To get there, you must climb. Some houses have a small, sturdy ladder made of birch wood, while others have wide wooden steps built right into the side of the stove's brickwork. You reach out and grab the first rung of the ladder. The wood is smooth and slightly polished from years of hands and feet gripping it. You begin to climb. Each step takes you higher into the air, and as you rise, you notice something immediately. The air is getting even warmer. In a small room like this, the heat does not stay on the floor. It likes to float up toward the ceiling. By the time your head passes the level of the stove's top, the air feels as soft and thick as a warm woolen blanket. It is a wonderful feeling. You are leaving the cool drafts of the floor behind and entering the heat zone. A microhistory detail you might notice as you climb is the gully base. This is a carved wooden partition or a small cupboard that often stands next to the stove. It helps support the weight of the sleeping platform and gives you something to hold onto as you make your way up. You grip the edge of the dark wood, feeling the simple patterns carved into it. These carvings often look like suns or flowers, symbols meant to protect the sleeper from bad dreams. It feels solid and safe under your hand, a sturdy bridge between the ground and the sky. You reach the top and pull yourself onto the flat surface. This is the Lazanka. The Lazanka is the wide flat area built directly over the body of the stove. It is covered with a layer of smooth clay, which has been baked hard by the fire below. It is not a soft mattress like we have today. It is a firm, solid bed, but because it is warm, it feels much more comfortable than any soft bed could. You crawl across the surface, feeling the radiant heat through the palms of your hands and the skin of your knees. It is like crawling onto the back of a giant sleeping dragon that is full of sun. A simple historical fact about the Lazanka is that it was the most important bed in the house. In a large family, the oldest members, the grandfathers and grandmothers, would always sleep here. Their old bones ached in the Siberian cold, and the deep heat of the stove was the only thing that made them feel better. Tonight, though, the house is quiet, and the spot is yours. You are the guardian of the night, and you have earned the warmest place in the Izba. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You lie flat on your stomach for a moment, pressing your chest against the warm clay. You do not move. You just listen. From up here, the sounds of the house are different. You can hear the soft rustle of the straw in the floor mattresses below. You can hear the faint, distant whistle of the wind against the very top of the roof. But mostly, you hear the stove. It makes a low humming sound, the sound of heat moving through stone. It is a very deep and steady sound. It makes you feel like you are being cradled by the earth itself. You look around your small, high world. The ceiling of the cabin is very close now. You could reach up and touch the heavy, dark beams with your hand. The beams are stained black from years of smoke, but they smell of old pine and history. Because you are so high up, the shadows of the room below feel far away. Down there is the world of work, of boots, and of cold floors. Up here, there is only warmth. It is a private sanctuary. You find your pillow. It is not filled with feathers, but with soft, dried husks of grain or sweet-smelling hay. When you lay your head down, it makes a soft, crunching sound. The smell of the hay is wonderful. It reminds you of the summer harvest, of the sun on the fields and the sound of the scythe. It is a summer smell in the middle of a winter night. You pull a thick sheepskin rug over your legs. The wool is heavy and warm, trapping the heat of the stove against your skin. You are now perfectly positioned. Your back is covered by the sheepskin, and your front is warmed by the bricks. You are like a piece of bread being kept warm in a basket. The tiredness that has been chasing you all day finally catches up. It is not a sharp, painful tiredness anymore. It is a soft, melting feeling. Your muscles feel like they are turning into liquid. You can feel the tension leaving your neck, your shoulders, and your lower back. The heat is like a medicine that finds every ache and rubs it away. You look over the edge of the stove down into the room. The small oil lamp is just a tiny spark now. The shadows are long and still. The house is settled. The night shift of the climber is done. You have made the journey from the frozen forest to the warm floor, and finally to the high hearth. You have reached the summit of your day. There is nowhere else you need to go and nothing else you need to do. You think about how many people have climbed this same ladder. Mothers carrying babies, tired farmers after a day in the forest, and children hiding from the thunder. The top of the stove is a place of peace that has existed for centuries. It is a piece of human history that is all about being safe and being warm. You feel a deep connection to all those people. You are sharing their comfort. You are part of the story of the Pech. The air at this height is very still. It doesn't move at all. It just sits around you like a warm pool of water. You take a slow, deep breath, feeling the heat go all the way down into your chest. It feels like you are breathing in the light of the fire. You close your eyes, and the darkness is not cold or scary. It is a warm, velvety dark that promises deep rest. The Siberian winter is still out there, but from up here, it feels like it belongs to another world. You shift your body slightly, finding the perfect spot where the bricks are just the right temperature. You are tucked in, safe and sound. The ladder is behind you, the room is below you, and the warmth is all around you. You are the watchman of the history, and your watch has brought you to the best place in the world. You are on top of the stove, and the night is yours to enjoy in perfect golden peace. You are now lying flat on the platform, and the first thing you do is adjust your body to find your perfect spot. The top of the stove is large, and some parts are a little warmer than others. You move slowly, feeling the smooth clay beneath you. You find a place right in the middle, directly above the main body of the oven. This is the heart of the heat. You stretch out your arms and legs, making yourself as big as possible to touch as much of the warm surface as you can. It feels like the heat is a physical thing, a soft hand pressing against your skin, telling you that it is okay to let go of the day. The platform, or the lezanka, is not perfectly level. There are tiny, gentle hills and valleys in the clay where the stove maker smoothed it out with his palms. You find a little dip that fits the curve of your hip perfectly. It feels like the stove was built specifically for you. This is the secret of the night shift in the Siberian forest. The stove is not just a heater, it is a living bed that remembers the fire. While a normal bed gets cold if you move, the stove stays warm no matter how much you toss and turn. It is a constant, steady source of life. A micro-history detail you notice as you settle in is the prologue. This is a heavy curtain made of linen or rough wool that hangs from the ceiling beams around the top of the stove. You reach out and pull the fabric shut. The rings make a soft swish sound as they slide along the wooden pole. Now, you are in a tiny, private room of your own. The curtain keeps the heat trapped even better, and it blocks out the tiny bit of light left in the cabin. It is dark, warm, and very quiet inside your linen tent. You feel like a bird in a nest, tucked away from the rest of the world. You lie on your side and press your back against the warm bricks. The heat is radiant. In history, people didn't understand the science of infrared waves, but they understood the feeling. Radiant heat doesn't just warm the air, it warms the objects it touches. It is the same kind of heat you feel from the sun on a hot summer afternoon. Even though it is 40 degrees outside, your body thinks it is July. You can feel the warmth moving through your shirt, through your skin, and deep into your muscles. It reaches the places that have been tight and sore from carrying wood and walking through the deep snow. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You lie perfectly still. You can hear your own steady breathing, muffled by the curtain. You are so close to the ceiling that the sound of the wind outside is a bit clearer here. It is a lonely, high-pitched whistle as the air rushes over the wooden shingles of the roof. But instead of making you feel cold, it makes you feel even warmer. The sound of the wind is a reminder of the danger you have escaped. It is the sound of the winter trying to get in and failing. You are safe in your clay fortress. The thick logs and the massive stove are standing guard, and nothing can reach you here. A simple historical fact about these stoves is that they were often the only place where people could truly get dry. In a land of snow and ice, dampness is a great enemy. If your clothes stay wet, you stay cold. But the top of the Pech is a desert. The dry heat pulls the moisture out of everything. You can feel the air around you is very dry, which makes the heat feel even more intense. It is a healthy kind of heat. It stops the wood of the house from rotting, and it keeps the people from getting the winter cough. You take a deep breath of this dry, warm air, and it feels like it is cleaning your lungs. You reach down and touch the clay surface again. It is remarkably smooth. Over the years, the many layers of lime wash have filled in the cracks, making it feel like polished stone. You think about all the stories that have been told on top of this stove. This is where grandfathers told tales of firebirds and grey wolves to their grandchildren. This is where secrets were whispered in the dark. The stove has heard everything. It is the keeper of the family's history. As you lie here, you are adding your own quiet chapter to that story. Your body is finally starting to give in to the exhaustion. The night shift of the traveller is a heavy burden, and the heat is the only thing that can lift it. You feel a wave of sleepiness wash over you, starting at your toes and moving up to your head. It is a heavy, golden feeling. You are no longer thinking about the chores of tomorrow or the cold of today. Your world has shrunk down to the size of this platform. You are just a human being, warm and safe, resting on the earth. You pull the sheepskin rug up a little higher, tucking it under your chin. The wool smells faintly of the outdoors, but the heat of the stove is making it smell like toasted bread. You feel like you are melting into the bricks. The boundary between your body and the stove seems to disappear. You are the heat, and the heat is you. This is the deepest kind of comfort a person can know. It is the comfort of the hearth, the author and most basic human need. The cricket's song is very faint now through the thick clay in the linen curtain. It sounds like it is coming from a long way off. Like a memory of a song, you close your eyes, and the darkness is filled with the soft red glow of your own eyelids. You are floating on a mountain of warmth in the middle of a frozen sea. The Siberian winter can do its worst. It cannot touch the person on the Pech. You have found your spot, you have closed the curtain, and you are ready to drift away into the long, peaceful night. You reach out and pull a thick sheepskin rug over your cold shoulders. In the history of the frozen north, sheepskin was the most valuable blanket a person could own. It is not like the thin, soft blankets you might find in a modern shop. This is a heavy, rugged piece of microhistory called a tulip. It is made from the entire skin of a sheep, with the soft curly wool left on one side and the tough tanned leather on the other. You turn the wool side inward, so the fluffy white curls are pressing against your skin. It feels like 1,000 tiny clouds are hugging you all at once. The weight of the sheepskin is part of the comfort. It is heavy enough to make you feel pinned down in the best possible way. In a land where the wind can blow a person over, having something heavy on top of you makes you feel secure. You tuck the edges of the rug under your feet and your chin, creating a warm cocoon. The wool has a very specific smell. It is earthy and slightly oily, the scent of the animal that grew it. It is a natural smell that reminds you of the fields and the life of the village. As the heat from the stove rises into the wool, the rug becomes a heat trap, catching every bit of warmth and holding it right against your body. A simple historical fact about sheepskin is that it was famous for staying warm even if it got a little bit damp. This was vital for the night shift of the peasant. If he came in from the snow and your clothes were a bit wet, the sheepskin would still protect you. It is nature's best insulator. The tiny air pockets between the curls of wool act like little rooms that store the heat of the stove. You can feel the temperature under the rug rising second by second. Soon you are so warm that you have to stick one arm out into the air just to stay balanced. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You lie perfectly still under the heavy wool. You can hear the sound of your own heart beating, a slow and steady thump-thump that sounds loud because your ears are tucked under the rug. The world is very small right now. It is just the space between the warm clay below and the sheepskin above. You feel like a seed buried deep in the ground, waiting for the spring. You are hidden. You are invisible to the rest of the world. Even the cold wind outside seems like a dream that happened to someone else. You rub your hand over the surface of the wool. It is thick and bouncy. You think about the sheep that gave this gift to your family. In the summer, those sheep grazed on the green grass of the hills, soaking up the sun and the rain. Now, in the middle of a frozen Siberian night, that sun is being given back to you through the wool. It is a beautiful cycle of nature. The animal took the energy of the summer and turned it into this thick coat, and now that coat is keeping you alive when the world is at its deadliest. The sheepskin rug is also very quiet. Unlike modern fabrics that might swish or crackle, the wool is silent. You can move your legs and it doesn't make a sound. This adds to the feeling of peace in the room. Everything in the Izba is made of natural materials: wood, clay, wool, and linen. These things belong together. They don't fight each other. They work together to create a space where a human can thrive. You feel a deep sense of rightness. You are exactly where you are supposed to be, wrapped in the things the earth provided. You feel the heat from the stove seeping through the bottom of the rug. It is a strange and wonderful feeling to have heat coming from below and insulation coming from above. It is like being inside a warm oven yourself, but without the fire. Your muscles, which were tight from the walk home, finally begin to go completely limp. You feel the melting sensation again. It starts in your low back and moves through your hips and down your legs. The heavy wool presses down on you, helping your body to relax. You think about how different this is from the world outside. Out there, the frost is turning everything into stone, the trees are stiff, the ground is hard, and the air is sharp. But here under the sheepskin, everything is soft and flexible. You are the only soft thing in a world of ice. This makes you feel very precious. You are the flame that the house is trying to protect. The logs, the moss, the stove, and the rug are all layers of armor that keep your little spark of life from being blown out by the winter. The darkness inside your little cocoon is complete. You can't see your own hand in front of your face, but you don't need to see. You can feel everything you need. You feel the solid clay, the soft wool, and the rising heat. This is the night shift of the senses. When you cannot see, your skin becomes your eyes. You see the warmth. You see the texture of the rug. It is a very deep and ancient way of experiencing the world. It makes you feel very old and very wise. You take a long, slow breath. The air under the rug is warm and smells of the hearth. You feel a wave of gratitude for the sheepskin. It is more than just a blanket. It is a shield. It is the final piece of the puzzle that makes the Pech a perfect bed. Without the rug, the heat would escape into the room. With the rug, the heat belongs to you. You are the owner of the warmth. You close your eyes and let your head sink deeper into the pillow of hay. The sheepskin is heavy, the stove is hot, and the night is long and peaceful. You lie very still, but you are not asleep yet. Now that you are tucked under the sheepskin, your ears seem to grow sharper. You begin to notice the sound of the Siberian wind outside the thick log walls. In the history of the night shift, the wind is the main character of the winter. It is not just moving air. It is a force that has travelled thousands of miles across the open plains of the east. It has crossed frozen rivers and climbed over the Ural mountains, and now it has found your little village. The sound is a long, low moan. It starts far away in the forest, a sound like a giant breathing. Then it gets louder and higher, turning into a whistle as it hits the corners of the cabin. You can hear it searching for a way in. It pushes against the wooden shutters of the windows. It rattles the heavy door in its frame. It sounds like a ghost crying, or a hungry wolf howling at the moon, but no matter how hard it pushes, it cannot get past the logs. The walls of the Izba are made of solid pine, and they are strong enough to stand against the storm for 100 years. A microhistory detail you can hear is the shell. This is the sound of the wind finding a tiny gap in the wood. Even the best house has a small crack somewhere. When the wind hits it, it makes a sound like a flute, a tiny sharp wheeze. But because the family has stuffed those cracks with dried moss, the air doesn't actually come inside. The moss acts like a stopper in a bottle. You hear the wind try, you hear the wind groan, but you feel no cold draft. You are inside the warm bubble created by the Pech, and the storm is just a noisy neighbour. A simple historical fact about these winters is that the wind could create whiteouts that lasted for days. A person could get lost just walking 10 feet from their door to the woodpile. Because of this, the sound of the wind was often a signal to stay inside and wait. It was a time for stories and for resting. As you listen to the gale, you feel a deep sense of power. You are beating the weather. You are in the one place where the wind has no bite. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. In this pause, the wind drops for just a second. The world outside becomes perfectly quiet. You imagine the snow falling in the dark, huge white flakes landing on the roof above your head. Then the wind returns with a sudden thump against the wall, making the whole house vibrate slightly. It is a reminder that the world is very big and you are very small. But your small world is safe. The heavy sheepskin and the warm clay of the stove are like a shield that the wind cannot break. You think about the trees in the forest. Right now, they are bending and swaying in the dark. Their branches are covered in ice, and they are fighting to stay upright. You feel a strange kind of pity for the wild world. Everything out there is struggling to survive the black darkness and the 40-degree air. But here, on top of the stove, the biggest problem you have is whether to turn over on your other side. The contrast makes the warmth feel like a miracle. It makes you appreciate the simple logs and the dried moss more than any gold or silver. The sound of the wind actually helps you feel more relaxed. It is like a lullaby with a very deep bass. It provides a background noise that drowns out the small creaks of the house. You find yourself matching your breathing to the rhythm of the storm. As the wind rises, you take a breath in. As it fades, you let a breath out. You are becoming part of the night. You are safe in your nest, and the storm is just the music of the Siberian winter. You feel the radiant heat from the stove pushing back against the sound of the wind. It is a battle between the fire and the ice, and the fire is winning. The heat in your back is steady and strong. It tells the wind that it's not welcome here. You pull the rug tighter around your ears to muffle the sound even more. Now, the wind sounds like it is 1,000 miles away, even though it is just on the other side of the logs. You are drifting closer to sleep, protected by the history of the hearth and the strength of the forest. The heat from the stove is no longer just something you feel on the surface of your skin. It has moved deeper. It is now a part of you. This is what we call radiant heat. In the history of the night shift, this was the most important kind of warmth. Unlike the heat from a small candle or a gust of warm air that blows away as soon as you move, the heat from the massive clay Pech is steady. It is a deep, heavy warmth that seeps into your very bones. You feel it pressing against your shoulder blades and your lower back. It feels like the summer sun has been captured and held inside the bricks, just for you. A micro-history detail about this feeling is the progrev. This is a word people use to describe the process of getting warmed through. In the Siberian winter, your body gets cold in a way that is hard to fix. The cold stays inside your joints and makes your muscles feel stiff and old. But an hour on top of the Pech changes everything. You can feel the heat finding the cold spots in your knees and your elbows. It is like a gentle, invisible hand, rubbing away the aches of the day. Your body feels light, almost as if you are floating on a cloud of warm air rather than lying on a hard clay platform. A simple historical fact about radiant heat is that it travels in straight lines. It doesn't need the air to move it. This is why you feel so warm, even if the air in the room is still. The bricks of the stove are sending out waves of energy that hit your body and turn back into heat. It is a very natural way to stay warm. It is the same way the earth stays warm during the day. As you lie there, you feel a deep sense of peace. The black darkness of the forest is full of freezing air, but your small world is a place of constant, glowing energy. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You lie perfectly still, letting the heat do its work. You don't even want to move your fingers. The warmth has made you feel so relaxed that your body feels like it is melting into the stove. You can hear the tiny distant sound of the wood settling deep inside the chimney, a soft clink of stone against stone. The room is so quiet that you can almost hear the heat itself, a low hum that vibrates in the back of your head. It is a very safe sound. It tells you that the fire is still doing its job and the bricks are still full of life. You think about how the heat feels on your back. It is a solid, dependable feeling. Most of the time we only feel heat on our face or our hands, but having it on your back is special. It makes your whole spine relax. You feel the tension from the long walk, the way you had to hunch your shoulders against the wind finally disappear. You are no longer fighting the winter. You have surrendered to the warmth. The night shift of the body is about this, letting go of the struggle and allowing the hearth to take over the work of keeping you alive. The heat is also very dry. It doesn't feel sweaty or sticky. It feels clean. It smells of the lime wash on the bricks and the faint, sweet scent of the birch wood. This dryness is very good for your health. It keeps the dampness of the snow from making you sick. You feel like you are being baked, just like the rye bread was earlier, turning into something strong and good. You take a slow, deep breath, and the warm air fills your chest, warming you from the inside out. You are a circle of heat, protected by the heavy sheepskin and the ancient clay. As you lie in the perfect warmth, you look down through the small gap in your linen curtain. The room below is almost entirely dark now, but you can see one thing clearly. Through the tiny cracks around the iron door of the stove, there is a soft orange glow. These are the last coals of the fire. In the history of the house, these coals are called the sari. They are the tiny pieces of wood that have finished burning but are still holding on to the core of the fire's energy. They don't have big, dancing flames anymore. They just sit there, glowing with a deep, steady light, like a pile of rubies hidden in the ash. This soft light is the only thing moving in the room. It flickers just a tiny bit, casting long, lazy shadows that crawl across the floorboards. You watch the way the light touches the bottom of the table and the legs of the wooden chairs. It is a very gentle light. It doesn't hurt your eyes or wake you up. Instead, it feels like a nightlight that the house has left on for you. It is a reminder that the heart of the stove is still beating. Even though the night shift of the wood is ending, the night shift of the coals is just beginning. They will stay hot for hours, slowly turning into grey ash as they give their last bit of spirit to the bricks. A micro-history detail about these coals is that they were never wasted. In the old days, a family would never let the fire truly die. Before going to bed, they would use the iron poker to gather all the hot coals into a neat pile and cover them with a layer of warm ash. This is called burying the fire. This layer of ash acts like a blanket, keeping the coals hot until the next morning. When you wake up, you won't need to strike a match or start from scratch. You will just uncover the zari, add some birch bark, and the fire will be born again. It is a continuous loop of life that connects today to tomorrow. A simple historical fact about these embers is that they were sometimes used to move fire from one house to another. If a neighbor's fire went out, they would come to your door with a small metal pot or a ceramic jar. You would give them a few of your glowing coals, and they would carry them home to start their own hearth. Fire was a community gift. It was something people shared to help everyone stay alive. As you watch your own coals, you feel a sense of connection to all the other houses in the village. Every home has this same red glow hidden inside its white stove tonight. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You don't hear a single sound from the floor below. The house is perfectly still. You just watch that tiny orange heartbeat. It makes you feel very safe. It is the opposite of the black darkness outside. Outside, the dark is cold and empty. Inside, the dark is warm and full of the memory of the fire. You feel the weight of your eyelids getting heavier. The rhythm of the glowing light is like a slow, visual lullaby. Every time the glow dims and then brightens, your mind drifts a little further away from the world of the living. You think about how much energy is still trapped in those little pieces of wood. They have been through the roar of the flames, and now they are in their most peaceful state. They are just pure heat. You can feel that heat rising up through the clay, reaching your back and your legs. It is a very honest kind of warmth. It isn't trying to be loud or bright. It is just being there for you. You feel a deep respect for the wood and the fire. They have given everything they have to make sure you are comfortable. The room feels like it is breathing with the coals. As the light pulses, the air seems to expand and contract. You are part of this rhythm. You are not just a person sleeping on a stove. You are part of the system of the house. You, the logs, the bricks, and the coals are all working together to stay warm in the middle of the great winter. The night shift of the watchman is a quiet one, but it is very important. You are the witness to the fire's end, and you are the one who will see its new beginning in the morning. You close your eyes, but you can still see the orange glow in your mind. It is a warm, happy color. It reminds you of autumn leaves and the setting sun. It is the color of safety. You let out a long, slow sigh. The last task of the day is to simply watch and wait. The coals are doing work now. You can rest. You can let the red light guide you into your dreams. The Siberian night is dark, but your heart is full of the fire's glow. In the history of these small log cabins, space was a very precious thing. An Izba was usually just one large room where everything happened: cooking, working, and resting. Because of this, the top of the stove was not a private bedroom for just one person, it was a shared space. Tonight, as you lie on the warm clay, you are not alone. You are sharing this high, warm platform with your family. To your left, you can feel the steady weight of a sibling, and to your right, the soft breathing of a grandparent. In the night shift of the Siberian winter, being close to other people was the best way to stay alive. Sharing space like this is a very old way of living. It makes the house feel like a single, living heart. You are all tucked together under a mix of sheepskin rugs and heavy woolen blankets. You can feel the heat from the stove below you, but you also feel the body heat from the person next to you. In a world that is 40 degrees below zero, this extra warmth is like a gift. You don't feel crowded or squashed. Instead, you feel part of a pack. You feel the safety of the group. If the wind blows harder or the fire gets lower, you have each other. A microhistory detail you might notice is the way the family is arranged. There is a specific order to who sleeps where on the Pech. The oldest people, whose blood is thin and whose bones are cold, get the very middle, which is the hottest spot. The children are often tucked into the corners or near the feet of the adults to keep them from rolling off the edge. You are lying in your own assigned spot, feeling the warmth of your family through the layers of cloth. You can hear the different rhythms of their sleep, the deep, slow breath of the old and the quick, light breath of the young. It is a peaceful symphony of life. A simple historical fact about these homes is that they were often built to hold 3 generations of one family. This meant that the stove had to be very large to make sure everyone had a warm place to go when the sun went down. Sleeping together like this was not just about warmth, it was about love and protection. It meant that no one was ever truly alone in the dark. If a child had a bad dream, they could reach out and touch the rough, warm hand of a parent. If an old person felt a chill, they could move a little closer to the center. It was a community of the hearth. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You lie perfectly still, trying not to wake the others. The only sound in the house is the collective breathing of the family. It sounds like a soft tide coming in and out. You feel a deep sense of responsibility. You are one of the people keeping this family safe tonight. You were the one who checked the door and fed the birch logs into the stove. Now, your reward is this feeling of belonging. You are a link in a long chain of people who have looked after each other in this frozen land. You think about how quiet the room is. In a house full of people, you might expect it to be loud, but the night shift of the family is very calm. Everyone knows that sleep is important for the work of the coming day. You feel the softness of the sheepskin against your cheek and the solid strength of the clay beneath your chest. The heat from the stove moves through all of you, connecting the family together like a warm thread. You are all being kept alive by the same fire and the same breath. This closeness makes the Siberian winter feel much smaller. Outside, the wilderness is vast and empty, stretching for thousands of miles of ice and forest. But here, in the small circle of the Pech, the world is only a few feet wide. It is a world made of soft wool, warm clay, and the people you love. You feel a wave of peace wash over you. The darkness of the room doesn't feel lonely because you are not alone in it. The shadows are just a blanket that covers everyone equally. Your arm is resting near your brother's shoulder. You can feel the slight rise and fall of his back as he dreams. It is a comforting rhythm. It tells you that everything is okay. The night shift of the watchman is not just about looking at the past. It is about protecting the present. You are guarding this small group of humans, making sure they stay warm until the sun returns to the sky. You feel a sense of pride in your work. You have done a good job. The heat from the stove is now a deep, humming presence. It fills the space between you and the ceiling, making the air feel like it is made of silk. You close your eyes and let your head sink into the hay-filled pillow. You are drifting now, moving away from the world of thoughts and into the world of dreams. You are safe. Your family is safe. The stove is warm and the night is quiet. You let the shared warmth of the family carry you down into a deep, heavy sleep. Before you can fully give yourself over to sleep, you remember one small but important task. You reach down to the edge of the stove platform where you left your damp wool socks and your footcloths. In the history of the night shift, drying your clothes was a vital part of staying healthy. If you put on wet socks in the morning, the Siberian cold would turn them into ice in minutes. You pull the socks closer to the warm clay of the stove. They are still a little heavy and cold from the snow, but as you lay them flat against the white surface, you can almost hear them sigh with relief. You spread the socks out carefully, making sure there are no folds or bunches in the fabric. This is a microhistory detail of the peasant life, the sushka. This simply means the drying. The top of the Pech is the best dryer in the world. The dry, radiant heat pulls the water out of the wool and into the air. Within a few hours, the socks will be stiff, dry, and toasted warm. You also take your linen shirt and adjust it so the heat can reach your skin better. Everything you own is being recharged by the stove. The wool, the linen, and your own tired muscles are all soaking up the energy of the birch fire. A simple historical fact about wool is that it is a living fabric, even when it is old and worn. It has tiny scales that trap air. When you dry it on the stove, those scales open up and the wool becomes bouncy and thick again. You rub the fabric between your fingers. It feels rough and honest. It smells of the sheep, the wood smoke, and the cold forest. By morning, these socks will feel like brand new armor for your feet. Taking care of your clothes is how you show respect for the work you do. In the night shift of history, a person was only as strong as their boots and their wool. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You lie back and watch the steam rise from your socks. It is very faint, only visible when it passes in front of the tiny orange glow from the stove door below. The steam rises in thin, ghostly curls before vanishing into the warm air near the ceiling. It is a peaceful thing to watch. It shows that the stove is doing its job. You feel a deep sense of order. Everything is in its place. The fire is in the hearth, the bread is in the cloth, the family is in the bed, and the clothes are on the clay. The house is a perfect machine for living. You feel the heat from the stove moving through the damp wool and onto your own skin. It is a humid, heavy warmth at first, but it quickly turns dry and comfortable. Your feet feel wonderful now that they are near the drying fabric. You wiggle your toes under the sheepskin, enjoying the space. The night shift of the watchman is about these small cycles of renewal. You are not just resting, you are getting ready for tomorrow. You are making sure that when the sun rises over the frozen trees, you will be ready to face the world again. You think about the people who don't have a stove like this. You think about the soldiers in their tents, or the hunters in their small forest huts. You feel very lucky to have these thick log walls and this massive white heater. The Pech is like a mother who looks after everyone. It doesn't just give you heat, it takes care of your things. It dries your clothes, it warms your food, and it protects your health. You reach out and pat the warm clay next to your socks, a silent thank you to the bricks. The room is getting even quieter. The sound of the wind outside is still there, but it feels like it is losing the battle. The heat of the house is too strong for the cold to win tonight. You feel a wave of deep, heavy relaxation. The melting feeling is back, stronger than ever. Your arms feel like they're made of lead, and your head feels light. You are finally ready to stop thinking. The clothes are drying, the work is done, and the night is yours. You close your eyes and let the smell of warm wool and birch smoke carry you away. As you lie in the deep, velvet dark, your mind begins to wander to the stories you were told as a child. In the history of the Russian village, you are never truly alone in your house. Every Izba has a secret inhabitant who lives behind the massive stove. This is the domovoi. He is the house spirit, the guardian of the hearth, and the protector of the family. He is said to be a small, elderly man with a long, bushy beard and eyes that glow like the embers in the stove. He doesn't want to hurt anyone. He just wants the house to be peaceful, the fire to be fed, and the animals in the shed to be warm. You think about the space behind the Pech. There is a small dark gap between the clay wall of the stove and the logs of the house. This is the domovoi's favourite place. It is the warmest and quietest spot in the entire cabin. In the night shift of the spirit world, the domovoi is the one who stays awake when everyone else is dreaming. He listens to the wind. He counts the logs in the woodpile. He makes sure the iron zaslonka is closed tight so the heat doesn't escape. You feel a sense of comfort knowing he is there. It is like having an extra pair of eyes watching over you while you sleep. A microhistory detail about the domovoi is the offering. Before you climbed up to the top of the stove tonight, you might have noticed a small crust of rye bread or a tiny bowl of milk placed on a shelf near the stove. This is a gift for the spirit. It is a way of saying thank you for keeping the house safe. If the domovoi is happy, the bread will rise perfectly and the cricket will sing loudly. If he is upset, he might make the floorboards creak or hide your favorite wooden spoon. But tonight, the house feels very calm. You can feel that the spirit is pleased with the warmth of the hearth. A simple historical fact about these spirits is that they were considered part of the family. When a family moved to a new house, they would take a shovel full of old coals from their stove and carry them to the new one. They would invite the domovoi to come with them, saying, "Domovoi, domovoi, come with us to our new home." They believed the spirit lived in the heat itself. As you lie on the warm clay, you feel like you are sharing a bed with the very soul of the house. It is a very safe and cozy thought. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You listen for any tiny sounds behind the stove. You hear a soft thud, like a small boot stepping on a wooden plank. Is it just the wood of the house cooling down, or is it the spirit making his rounds? You smile to yourself in the dark. In this part of the world, the line between what is real and what is a story is very thin. When the wind is howling at 40 below zero and the forest is a wall of blackness, you need to believe in a little bit of magic. The domovoi is the magic of the home. He represents the love and the work that goes into making a life in the wild. The heat from the stove feels even more special when you think of it as a gift from the spirit. It is a deep, glowing warmth that reaches into your heart. You feel the night shift of your own thoughts slowing down. You are no longer worried about the chores of the village or the deep snow. You are under the protection of the Pech and its silent guardian. You feel a wave of sleepiness that is so heavy you can barely lift your hand. The stories of the firebirds and the forest spirits start to mix with the warmth of the sheepskin. You think about how long this spirit has lived here. He has seen the grandfathers grow old, and the children grow tall. He knows every crack in the clay and every knot in the pine logs. He is the memory of the house. As you drift off, you feel like you are being tucked in by history itself. The domovoi is satisfied. The fire is buried in ash. The bread is safe, and the family is warm. Your watch is supported by his watch. You close your eyes, knowing that even in the deepest part of the night, you are not alone. The spirit of the hearth is standing guard in the shadows. As you lie on your back, staring upwards, your world is defined by the heavy wooden beams just a few feet above your face. In the history of the night shift, these beams are the bones of the house. They are thick, hand-hewn trunks of pine that have been seasoned by years of heat and smoke. In the very dim light coming from the dying embers below, the ceiling is a landscape of moving shadows. You watch as a soft orange flicker catches the edge of a timber, making it glow for a second before it fades back into a deep velvet black. The light is not steady. Because it comes from the zari, those glowing coals deep in the belly of the stove, it pulses like a slow, sleeping breath. One moment, you can see the rough texture of the wood and the dark knots in the grain. The next, the shadows stretch and grow, turning the ceiling into a sea of shifting shapes. To someone who's wide awake, these shadows might look like monsters or ghosts. But to you, half asleep and wrapped in the warmth of the pit, they look like old friends. They are the same shadows that have danced on this ceiling every night since the house was built. A micro-history detail you might notice in the shadows is the coltso. This is a heavy iron ring bolted into the central beam of the ceiling. In the daytime, a baby's cradle would be hung from this ring on a long, bouncy branch. The mother could push the cradle as she worked by the stove, and the baby would bob up and down in the warm air. Now, the ring is empty, casting a small hooked shadow that looks like a question mark against the wood. It is a symbol of the family's future, waiting in the dark for the morning to come. A simple historical fact about these ceilings is that they were often covered in a thin layer of soot. In older houses called black huts, there was no chimney at all. The smoke from the stove would simply fill the room and hang in a thick cloud near the ceiling before drifting out of a small hole in the roof or a window. This kept the house very warm and protected the wood from bugs, but it made everything very dark. Even in your house, which has a proper chimney, the ceiling stays dark and mysterious. It holds on to the heat of the day, acting like a warm lid on the room. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You lie perfectly still, watching a single shadow move back and forth. It is the shadow of a bunch of dried herbs hanging from a peg. It moves slightly in the tiny current of warm air rising from the stove. It looks like a small dark bird ruffling its feathers. The silence is so deep that you can hear the tiny crinkle of the dried leaves. You feel very small lying here under the great weight of the roof. But it is a good kind of small. You are tucked away in a safe pocket of the universe, and the shadows are just there to keep you company. The flickering light is very hypnotic. Your eyes track the movement of the orange glow as it climbs a beam and then slides back down. It makes your brain feel slow and soft. You aren't thinking about the black darkness of the Siberian forest or the 40-degree wind anymore. You are only thinking about the light. The night shift of the eyes is nearly over. Soon you will not need light at all. You will be in the world where your mind makes its own pictures. You think about how many people have watched these same shadows, your father, your grandfather, and the children who will come after you. This ceiling is the sky of your indoor world. It protects you from the snow and the rain, and it holds the warmth of the family close. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for the sturdy pine logs. They have stood in the forest for 100 years, and now they are standing over you, keeping you safe through the long frozen night. The shadows seem to be getting slower. The coals below are cooling down, and the pulses of light are further apart. The room is sinking into a deeper shade of blue-black. You feel the heavy sheepskin rug pressing down on you, and the warm clay of the stove pushing up. You are caught in the middle, perfectly balanced. You take one last look at the dark beams above you. They look solid and kind. You close your eyes, and the shadows on the ceiling become the shadows of your dreams. You are falling now, drifting away from the wooden room and into the quiet peace of the deep winter night. The air on top of the stove is very dry, and as you drift in that space between being awake and being asleep, you feel a small tickle in your throat. The deep, radiant heat of the Pech is a wonderful thing, but it is also a thirsty heat. It has spent the last few hours drinking up the moisture from the air, the dampness from your socks, and even the breath from your lungs. You find yourself sitting up slowly, the sheepskin rug sliding off your shoulders with a soft hiss of wool against clay. Your body feels like a warm stone, heavy and slow. You need a sip of water. You move to the edge of the stove platform. The room below is a sea of deep blue shadows, lit only by the tiny, dying heartbeat of the stove's embers. You climb down the wooden ladder carefully, your bare feet finding the rungs by memory rather than by sight. When your toes touch the floorboards, you notice they are still warm. The heat from the massive stove has soaked so deep into the house that even the floor feels kind. You walk across the room to the corner where the water bucket stands. You find the carved wooden dipper, the kosh, and dip it into the oak bucket. The sound of the water moving is sharp and clear in the silence. Splosh. You lift the dipper to your lips. The water is colder than the air in the room. It feels like a liquid crystal sliding down your throat. In the history of the night shift, this midnight drink is a special moment. It wakes up your senses for just a second, letting you appreciate the warmth of the house even more. It is a simple fact that water tastes better in the middle of a winter night, especially when you have a warm bed waiting for you. A microhistory detail you might notice while standing there is the rukoyat. This is the handle of the water bucket, but it is also the word for the small towel hanging nearby. The towel is made of hand-woven linen and decorated with red cross-stitch patterns. You use it to wipe a stray drop of water from your chin. The linen is rough but clean, smelling of the summer air it was dried in. This small act of drinking and drying your face makes you feel completely refreshed. Your thirst is gone and the dryness in your throat has vanished. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You stand by the water bucket, perfectly still. You are not wearing your boots or your coat. But you are not cold. The Pech has filled every cubic inch of this room with its invisible warmth. You can hear the steady, rhythmic breathing of your family on the stove above you. You can hear the faint tick-tick of the house cooling down. You feel like a ghost moving through your own home. It is a very peaceful feeling to be awake when everyone else is resting. You are the silent watchman of the night, checking on the world before you return to your nest. You look at the bucket. The water inside is still now, reflecting the tiny bit of starlight that manages to peek through the frost on the window. In the village, water is life. During the summer, it comes from the rain and the clear streams. In the winter, it has to be fought for. You think of the person who will have to go out tomorrow to the black darkness of the river to fetch more. You feel a sense of duty to not waste a single drop. You pour the leftover water from the dipper back into the bucket very gently so as not to make a splash. You turn back toward the stove. From down here on the floor, the Pech looks like a giant white mountain. It is the most important piece of infrastructure in your life. Without it, the water in that bucket would be a block of ice by morning. Without it, the very air you are breathing would freeze your lungs. You feel a deep physical pull toward the heat. It is like a magnet for your body. Your muscles are already calling out for the warm clay and the heavy sheepskin. You walk back across the floor, your bare feet enjoying the smooth, warm pine. You climb the ladder again, feeling stronger now that you have had a drink. As you pull yourself back onto the platform, the air gets thicker and warmer with every inch you rise. You crawl back into your spot and pull the rug up to your ears. The contrast between the cold water in your stomach and the hot clay against your back is incredible. It makes you feel like your whole body is glowing. The night shift of the midnight drink is over. You have listened to the house. You have tasted the winter water, and you have confirmed that all is well. Your family is safe, the fire is still breathing, and the water is ready for the morning. You let out a long, satisfied sigh. The thirst is gone, and in its place is a deep, heavy sleepiness that you cannot fight anymore. You close your eyes and let the warmth of the Pech wrap around you like a heavy golden cloak. You lie back down and let your head rest on the hay-filled pillow. Now that your thirst is gone, you become aware of a different kind of sound, or rather, a lack of sound. You are listening to the silence of the deep woods. In the history of the night shift, there is nothing quite like the silence of a Siberian winter. When the temperature drops to 40 degrees below zero, the world changes. The air becomes so heavy and still that it feels like it has turned into glass. This is the big quiet. It is a silence so deep that it feels like it is pressing against the outside of the house, trying to find a way in. In the summer, the forest is a noisy place. You hear the rustle of leaves, the buzzing of insects, and the calls of birds. But in the middle of this frozen night, all those sounds are gone. The leaves have fallen, The bugs are sleeping deep in the earth, and the birds have flown away or are huddled in the thickest part of the pine trees. The forest is not dead, but it is holding its breath. It is a world of white and black, where nothing moves. This silence is a reminder of how powerful the winter is. It has the power to stop everything in its tracks. A micro-history detail that people use to deal with this cold is the malachi. This is a very large, heavy hat made of fox or wolf fur. It has long flaps that cover the ears and even the neck. When a person has to go out into this silence, they wrap themselves in fur until they look like a bear. But here on top of the stove, you don't need your fur hat. You are protected by something even better. Around the base of your house, on the outside, there is a zavalinka. This is a simple historical fact of Russian building. It is a low wooden frame filled with earth or straw that runs all the way around the bottom of the logs. It acts like a giant scarf for the house, keeping the frozen ground from stealing the heat from the floor. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You lie perfectly still, listening to the nothingness. It is a very strange feeling. Usually, there is always some sound, a clock ticking, a dog barking, or the hum of the wind. But tonight, even the wind has fallen asleep. The air outside is perfectly still. You imagine the forest as it looks right now under the light of the cold stars. Every branch is covered in a thick layer of frost that looks like white fur. The snow is so deep that it covers the bushes and the fallen logs, making everything look smooth and rounded. It is a beautiful, lonely world. You think about the animals out there in the dark. The elk and the deer are standing under the heavy branches of the fir trees, trying to keep their body heat from escaping. The wolves are curled into tight circles in their dens, their tails wrapped around their noses to keep them warm. Life in the Siberian forest is a constant battle against this silence and this cold. You feel a deep sense of gratitude that you are a human with a house. You have a fire, you have logs, and you have this massive clay stove. You are the only warm thing for miles around. The silence makes the heat of the stove feel even more intense. Because there are no sounds to distract you, you can focus entirely on the feeling of the warm clay against your skin. You can feel the heat moving into your legs, making them feel light and comfortable. You can feel the warmth in your hands, which are tucked under the sheepskin. The night shift of the forest is about survival, but the night shift of the house is about peace. You are in a sanctuary, a small island of life in a vast sea of ice. You look at the tiny window again. The frost is so thick it looks like white velvet. It blocks out the view of the woods, but it also blocks out the feeling of the vastness. It makes your world feel small and manageable. You don't need to see the miles of frozen trees. You only need to see the inside of your linen curtain and the dark beams of the ceiling. This is your kingdom. It is a place where the rules of the winter do not apply. Here, the air is kind and the bed is warm. You feel a sense of wonder at how humans have learned to live here. For hundreds of years, people have built these houses and these stoves. They have learned how to use the trees and the earth to create a little bit of summer in the middle of the winter. It is a clever and brave way to live. You feel proud to be part of this history. You are not just a person sleeping. You are a survivor. You have done everything right today, and now the silence of the woods is your reward. It is a quiet, well done from the world. Your breathing is very slow now. Each breath feels like a heavy weight being lifted and then set down again. You are sinking deeper into the clay. The melting feeling is so strong now that you feel like you are becoming part of the Pech. You are a warm brick. You are a glowing coal. You are the spirit of the hearth. The silence of the forest is no longer scary. It is just a blanket that covers the whole world, keeping it quiet while you rest. You close your eyes, and the silence follows you into the darkness. It is a soft, friendly silence. It tells you that the night is half over, and the morning is still a long way off. You have plenty of time to dream. You have plenty of time to be warm. You let go of the last of your thoughts, letting them drift away like snowflakes in the still air. The Siberian forest is silent, the house is quiet, and the stove is warm. All is well in your world. The wind begins to pick up again, but this time it sounds different. It is a sharp whistling sound that tells you the temperature is dropping even further. Outside, the world is now in the grip of the deepest frost. In the history of the night shift, this is the time when the air itself seems to freeze. If you were to throw a cup of hot water into the air right now, it would turn into a cloud of ice before it even hit the snow. But as you lie on the top of the Pech, you feel a wonderful sense of safety. You are in a place where the frost cannot reach. You are inside the inner circle of the house. You reach out and touch the logs of the wall that are closest to your bed. Because you are on the top of the stove, you are near the corner where the walls meet the roof. You can feel the cold coming from the wood, but it is a weak, distant cold. The logs are so thick, some as wide as a grown man's chest, that it takes days for the temperature to move through them, and in the cracks between the logs, the dried moss is doing its job. This moss, which you gathered in the autumn, is a miracle of nature. It traps tiny pockets of air, creating a wall that the frost cannot climb. You feel the rough bark under your fingers and know that it is a solid shield between you and the black darkness. A microhistory detail you might think about is the Moroz. In your language, this just means frost, but in the Siberian village, Moroz is almost like a person. He is a giant who walks through the woods at night, tapping on the trees with his icy staff. When you hear a loud crack from the forest, the old people say it is Moroz checking the strength of the wood, but he cannot get into your Izba. The Pech is his enemy. The heat from the clay walls creates a pressure that pushes the cold away. You are tucked into a warm pocket that the frost simply cannot enter. A simple historical fact about these houses is that they were built from the inside out. The first thing that was put on the foundation was often the stove itself. The rest of the house was built around it. This means the stove is not just in the room, it is the center of the world. Everything else, the walls, the roof, the windows, is just there to protect the heat. You feel the weight of this history beneath you. You are lying on the foundation of your family's life. As long as this clay stays warm, the world stays right. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You lie very still, feeling the contrast between the cold wall and the hot stove. It is a very cozy feeling. It makes you want to curl up even tighter under your sheepskin rug. You think about the night shift of the watchmen of the past. For hundreds of years, people have felt this same sense of victory over the winter. Every night that you stay warm is a night that you have won. The frost can tap on the windows, and the wind can howl through the eaves, but they are losing the battle. You are the one who is comfortable. You are the one who is safe. The air around your face is perfectly still. It is so warm that you could almost believe it is a summer night. You think about the garden outside, buried under 6 feet of snow. The apple trees are wrapped in straw, and the berry bushes are hidden away. They are all waiting for the sun, just like you are, but they have to face the frost alone, while you have the company of the fire and the bricks. You feel a deep sense of luxury in your simple linen shirt and your heavy wool. You don't need fancy things when you have the warmth of the hearth. Your mind starts to drift back toward the forest. You imagine the frozen rivers looking like giant paths of blue glass. You imagine the stars, so bright and cold that they look like they might fall out of the sky. It is a beautiful world, but it is a world for the wolves and the wind. Your world is here, in the heart of the Izba. You feel the radiant heat seeping into your chest, making your heart feel light. The melting feeling is now complete. You are no longer a person with worries or tasks. You are just a part of the house, a warm living thing in a warm wooden box. The darkness is very kind now. It doesn't feel like an enemy. It is just the absence of light, a quiet space where you can rest. You know that the iron door of the stove is shut and the coals are sleeping. You know that the family is breathing softly around you. You have done your duty. You have guarded the fire and the water. Now, the house is guarding you. You let your head sink into the hay-filled pillow one last time, feeling the warmth of the clay through the cloth. You are safe from the frost, and the night is yours to enjoy. As you lie in the perfect dry heat of the stove, your mind begins to drift away from the frozen present, even though the Siberian winter is at its strongest right now. The warmth of the Pech makes you think of the coming spring. In the history of the night shift, the winter is something you endure so that you can reach the light of the sun again. On top of the stove, the heat feels so much like a summer day that you can almost imagine the smell of the melting snow and the first wet earth. This is the dreaming time of the peasant, where the mind travels forward to the days when the forest will turn green once more. You think about the cycle of the seasons. Right now, deep under the heavy blanket of snow and the layers of ice, the world is waiting. The seeds of the rye and the roots of the trees are not dead. They are just sleeping, much like you are. They are holding their energy tight, waiting for the first sign that the black darkness is fading. A microhistory detail about this time is the Vesnyanka. These were special songs that people would sing in the late winter to call the spring. They believed that if they sang loudly enough and baked bread in the shape of birds, the warmth would come back sooner. As you lie here, you feel like the stove is singing its own quiet Vesnyanka to you, promising that the ice will eventually break. A simple historical fact about the Siberian spring is that it happens very fast. One day the world is a block of white stone, and the next the sun is high and the rivers are roaring with melting ice. This is why the winter rest is so important. You are gathering your strength, like a bear in its den, so that when the mud and the planting season arrive, you will be ready to work from dawn until dusk. The night shift of the winter is a long preparation for the day shift of the summer. You feel a sense of hope moving through you. The heat of the clay is a reminder that the sun still exists, even if you haven't seen it for many weeks. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You listen to the house. It is so quiet that you can hear the tiny, distant sound of a single drop of water hitting the floor. Perhaps it is a bit of frost melting from the window, or a leak in a water jar. It sounds like a tiny bell ringing in the dark. Plink, plink. It is a hopeful sound. It is a reminder that even the hardest ice can be turned back into water by the heat. You feel the warmth in your toes and your fingers, and you imagine the flowers that will grow in the village lane in a few months. The bright yellow coltsfoot and the soft blue forget-me-nots. They are there, hidden under the white, waiting for their turn. You think about the work that will come with the spring. There will be fences to fix, fields to plough, and the village well to clean. It will be a busy, noisy time. But for now, you don't have to do any of that. Your only job is to stay warm and dream. You feel a deep appreciation for the slow time of the winter. It is a gift of rest that the earth gives to the people. Without the massive stove and the thick logs, this rest would be a struggle. But with them, it is a luxury. You are a king in a wooden castle, waiting for your kingdom to wake up. The darkness of the room feels lighter when you think about the spring. The blue-black shadows don't look like ice anymore. They look like the deep shade of the summer forest. The smell of the rye bread in the room is a promise of the harvest to come. You are connected to the future by the heat in your back. You take a long, slow breath, and the air feels sweet. You are no longer just a person hiding from the cold. You are a person waiting for the light. The night shift of the watchman is coming to a close. You have seen the sunset. You have fed the fire. You have shared the warmth. And now you are looking toward the sunrise. You feel a wave of deep, heavy peace. The winter is long, but it is not forever. The ice is thick, but it is not permanent. Only the heat of the hearth and the hope of the heart are constant. You close your eyes and let the image of the green forest fill your mind. You are drifting now, moving toward the morning, one warm breath at a time. You have reached the deepest part of the night. In the history of the village, this is the hour when the world is at its most still. It is long after the last coal has lost its orange glow, and long before the first hint of grey light touches the eastern sky. The night shift of the house has settled into a perfect, steady rhythm. On top of the massive stove, the air is thick and silent. You are no longer thinking about the wind or the wood or the water. Your body has finally accepted the deep, heavy gift of the Pech. You have fallen into a sleep that is as solid as the clay bricks beneath you. This is not a light sleep where you toss and turn. This is the stove sleep. Because the heat is so steady and the radiant energy is so deep, your body does not have to work to stay warm. Your heart rate slows down, and your breathing becomes a long, slow wave. You feel like you are sinking into the stove, as if the clay has become soft like a cloud. In this state, you are perfectly safe. The 40-degree air outside is trying to find a way in, but it is met with the wall of heat that the Peach has been building all day. You are tucked into the very center of the house's protection. A microhistory detail about this time of night is the Tishina. This word means the deep quiet. It is more than just a lack of noise. It is a physical feeling of peace. In the old days, people believed that during the Tishina, the house was at its strongest. The logs were settled, the moss was tight, and the spirit of the hearth was watching over everyone. You can feel this quiet in your very bones. It is a restful silence that heals the mind. You are not dreaming of work or worries. You are just being. You are a part of the house, and the house is a part of you. A simple historical fact about these winters is that the deep night was the only time a peasant could truly rest. During the day, there was always something to do: animals to feed, snow to clear, or clothes to mend. But at 3 o'clock in the morning, the world is on hold. There is no work to be done in the black darkness. This makes the sleep on top of the stove even more valuable. It is a time when the only duty you have is to stay warm. You are a person of the hearth, and you have mastered the art of surviving the Siberian night. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You do not hear the cricket now. You do not hear the wind. Even the breathing of your family members seems to have faded into the background. There is only the feeling of the heat. It is a constant humming presence that wraps around your shoulders and your legs. You feel like you are being held by the earth itself. The warmth is like a thick, golden liquid that has filled the room, and you are floating right at the top of it. You feel light and heavy at the same time, a wonderful feeling that only happens in the deepest part of the night. You think about the history of this sleep. For 1,000 years, people in these lands have found this same peace. They have lain on these same clay platforms, wrapped in the same sheepskin rugs, listening to the same silence. It is a very old and very human way to rest. You are part of a long line of watchmen who have looked after the fire so that their families could sleep like this. You have earned this moment of total relaxation. The Siberian winter is big and scary, but your world is small and warm. Your mind is a blank slate of peace. The night shift of the brain has turned off its lights. You are drifting in a sea of warmth where the only thing that matters is the steady pulse of the radiant heat. You feel the softness of the hay-filled pillow and the weight of the woolen rug. You are exactly where you are supposed to be. You are safe. You are home. You are the king of the Pech, and the night is your kingdom. The deep, heavy dark of the night begins to change. It is not a sudden shift, but a slow and gentle fading. In the history of the night shift, this is the most beautiful moment. You are lying on the top of the stove, and through the small gap in your linen curtains, you see the first touch of light. It is a pale, milky blue color that starts at the edges of the frost on the window. The black darkness of the Siberian forest is being pushed back by the return of the sun. You feel a sense of quiet joy. You have made it through the night. The great winter has been kept at bay for another 12 hours. You lie still for a few more minutes, enjoying the last of the deep heat. The bricks of the Pech are not as hot as they were when you first climbed up, but they are still warm and kind. They have done their job perfectly. They held on to the spirit of the birch fire all through the freezing hours, sharing it with you, bit by bit. You reach out and touch the clay's surface, feeling a deep bond with the massive white heater. It was your protector, your bed, and your friend. Because of this stove, you are waking up refreshed and strong, ready for the work of a new day. A micro-history detail you notice as the light grows is the usual. This is the pattern of the frost on the window glass. Now that the morning light is hitting it, the frost looks like it is made of diamonds and silver. You can see shapes that look like giant ferns, feathers, and crystal trees. It is a beautiful gift from the cold, a piece of art that only exists in the winter. You watch the light move through the ice, casting tiny rainbows onto the wooden floorboards below. The house is starting to wake up. You hear a soft creak from a bench and the distant, muffled sound of a rooster crowing from the village. A simple historical fact about these mornings is that the first task was always the same, checking the fire. You climb down the ladder, your feet feeling light and warm. You walk over to the stove and pull back the iron door. There, buried under the white ash, you see the tiny red sparks of the coals you buried last night. They are still alive. You add a few curls of birch bark and a small piece of wood, and within seconds, a bright yellow flame jumps up. The cycle of the hearth begins again. The night is over, and the day has been born from the embers of the past. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You stand by the stove, watching the new fire grow. The room is no longer a world of shadows. It is a world of clear, honest wood and white clay. You feel a deep sense of peace. You did your duty as the watchman of the history. You kept the fire, you shared the warmth, and you protected the home. The Siberian winter is still outside, but today the sun is shining on the snow, turning the world into a bright, sparkling field of gold. You take a deep, slow breath of the morning air, which smells of fresh wood smoke and hope. The air is getting lighter and clearer. Every second, the heavy sheepskin rugs are being folded, and the family is starting to move. The night shift of the watchman is ending, but the story of the hearth goes on. You look at the massive Pech one last time. It looks strong and steady in the morning light, ready to do it all again. You feel a sense of pride in your home and your life. You have everything you need. You have the wood, the bread, and the warmth. Now, as the world wakes up, it is time for you to let go of the story. The journey through the frozen forest and the night on the stove is complete. You can feel your own body becoming light and relaxed, as if you are drifting on a calm sea. The warmth of the Pech will stay with you in your heart, a reminder that no matter how cold the world gets, there is always a place of safety and light. You have finished your watch, and you have done it well. The sun is rising over the edge of the world, turning the white snow into a sea of sparkling diamonds. The long blue shadows of the night are shrinking away, hiding back inside the deep woods. You can feel the warmth of the first light on your skin, a different kind of heat from the stove, but just as kind. The village is waking up, and the smoke from the chimneys is rising straight and true into the clear, cold sky. Your body feels soft and rested, and your mind is as clear as the winter air. You are safe. You are warm. The journey is over. You have walked through the black darkness and found the light. You have sat by the hearth and felt the pulse of the ancient clay. Now, the world of dreams is fading, and the world of the morning is here to greet you. You don't have to worry about the frost or the wind anymore. The house has protected you, and the fire has fed you. You can let the quiet peace of the Siberian morning wrap around you like a soft white blanket. Everything is in its place. Everything is as it should be. The cycle of the hearth is complete, and a new day of life is beginning. The sun is rising. The gates are opening. The watch is ended,